Today we're going to talk about why foreclosures, and we're going to jump into Michael Frankie's story. But more importantly, we are going to create an 18-part playlist that will give you all the questions you have, at least surface level, about foreclosures. Foreclosures are super intricate, right?
Oh, definitely so. A lot to learn.
A lot to learn, and really you learn most of it by being on the job and JVing with other people. That's what I would suggest you do, is get in touch with other people that are doing foreclosures. Is more important than any of this playlist will ever provide to you. However, this playlist will probably give you a little bit of motivation, help remove some of the fear so that you go out and actually take some action, meet some other people like Michael Frankie. And today I'm going to learn a ton of stuff from Michael Frankie. He's not only my friend, he's in our community, and I hope that he becomes the name in foreclosures in real estate. And I hope he zeroes in on that. Michael, where are you guys out of? Where do you currently live?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. Been there all 35 years.
Dang, why Kansas City? Why'd your parents choose that?
I have no idea. That's where they grew up. I often wonder why I live in Kansas City. When I come to places like Phoenix or Tampa or wherever, I don't really want to leave, but we're there for now.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about our city, but your city, I think you guys have a lot more hometown values. People are way more down to earth, and it's way more family oriented, I would imagine.
Right. We got the Chiefs too.
You got oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You guys got Taylor Swift, dude.
About that, I don't know.
She ruined it, man. She ruined it for a lot of us. Okay, so tell me your history. When did you get into real estate? And let's talk about your first deal.
So I got into real estate 2015. I was actually a teacher before that. I taught ninth graders algebra. Believe it or not, it's easier to get a house 50 cents on the dollar than teach kid algebra. But,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was working there, grinding 80 hours a week. I coached and I taught. And it just didn't feel like I was ever going to get ahead. I was working that hard and making about 40 grand a year. And no matter how much I pinched my pennies, I just wasn't getting ahead. And at some point, I just realized I had to do something else.
What was your education to be a school teacher? What does that look like?
So I had a 4-year degree.
How much did that cost?
It was about $80,000.
$80,000 and 4 years of your life to learn how to make $40,000 a year.
Right.
Interesting. Got it.
Yeah, it's a different philosophy. And once you open the Pandora's box of real estate, you can never go back. But I learned a lot of things from teaching. So
I know the answer to this question, but have you done deals bigger than your entire yearly salary as a school teacher?
One of my first deals I ever did was about that exact amount, and that blew my mind. And that was a few hours of work as opposed to an entire year.
Yeah, my story is very similar. Being a contractor, grinding out, I get $25,000 in my first deal, and it took 3 hours worth of work. And I'm like, why did somebody not tell me how to do this earlier?
Right.
So how did you jump into real estate? What was the moment in your teaching career you're like, this has to change, I need to do something different? And what was that transition?
So it was year number 3. I finished up the school year and I was like, there's no way I can do another 27 years. I hate this already. So I started planting seeds in my parents' mind. They had good enough W-2s that they wanted to help me buy a house. I actually found this house on Subto. It was an auction site back in the day. Mm-hmm. Paid too much for it. It was a house in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. We paid about 80 grand for the house. Ended up taking it down. I actually did all the work on the house.
Love it.
So all the painting, all the electrical, plumbing. I spent probably 3 months remodeling that house. I also got my real estate license at the time.
Was this during the summer, like a summer break or something like that?
Yeah, okay. We wrapped up school in May. By June, July, I'd already bought that house. The whole summer, I was working on the house, and then we listed it. Made about 18 grand, and then we split it with my folks. They funded the project. So it was 3 months of work, made 9 grand. Is that a lot of money? No, but it was proof of concept to me. And I realized I made about the same amount of money I was in teaching. I was my own boss. I controlled my own schedule.
You could listen to what you wanted to listen to throughout the day. I think as a man, you also getting your hands dirty and building something and seeing the immediate satisfaction of, I fixed a thing and now it looks better, probably felt better than teaching 9.
Oh, it did. And I could go to the bathroom when I wanted, so that's a plus.
You can do that as a teacher?
Not between periods of school, yeah.
Wow.
But
oh my gosh.
different world.
Shout out to all the teachers, guys. We appreciate you guys. There's a lot of teachers that really wake up every morning and they're excited about it. You are definitely underpaid and you are overworked, so shout out. So that's that first summer. You make $9,000, about the same amount of work. Did you get the bug in that moment, or you're like, this isn't all it's cracked up to be?
So I had the bug, but I wasn't necessarily convinced that I was a real estate investor. I didn't know if I was going to have to go back to teaching. Right when I got out of teaching, I cashed out about 20 grand out of the retirement fund that I had. So that's what we had.
You had a retirement fund from teaching?
Yeah.
For 3 years?
Yep.
Bro, I might need to move to Kansas City. You guys are saving money at 40 grand a year?
Well, not that. This was something that the school district provided.
Okay, I'm like, okay,
No.
man, how are you, because you're married, you've got children.
No, we didn't have any money. Not
You had
at
no
all.
money. Okay, got it. So you cashed out 20 grand so you could have a little bit of breathing room. You decided in that moment that you're going full time, or what was that thought process after you flipped that house?
So I decided that I was going to go full time. Left teaching. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't bring myself to go back.
What was the hardest thing in doing that?
You know,
Being beholden to somebody else's schedule? The patience level you had to have?
I mean, you definitely have to have a lot of patience with teaching, but it was one of those things where I was waking up each morning and I hated what I did. I literally dreaded waking up, going to school.
But why did you hate it? What was
Because
the thing that made you hate it?
There was no passion for me in the topic. I'm a type of person, I love teaching. I actually liked the act of teaching, but you were teaching a mile wide and an inch deep instead of teaching deeply. And I just didn't feel like I was being effective for those students and really helping them get, their life going after high school there.
Makes a lot of sense. You were lacking the passion and the connection to your own individual soul.
Right.
Okay, so you make the decision, I'm going full time. You cash out the $20,000. You have 100 bucks or whatever it is also from the fix and flip. What's your next move?
So the next 5-6 deals, I found I was kind of bootstrap stuff. I was finding stuff on the MLS. I was finding for sale by owners, kind of the normal stuff you would expect from a new investor. And a lot of those deals, they were not winners. I trusted the agent that I was working with. She kind of elevated some of the after repair values, kind of minimized what some of the repairs might be.
Why would she do that, Michael? That doesn't make any sense. Why would an agent lie about stuff?
Well, she was wanting a commission for her side. So
It is interesting. I don't mean to always bash real estate agents because I love working with really top level 1% agents, the unicorn agents out there in the world. But I used to give agents a lot of credence, a lot of respect, as you did, obviously, for those first 5-6 deals. And you're like, oh, well, the agent's telling me they're a licensed real estate professional, then I must just follow what they're saying. And then what happened on those deals? Some of them dogs, you lost money. Some of them you just barely got by.
fortunately, most of them broke even. But remember, I was doing all the work on those houses still, so it was an enormous amount of time for me.
So you actually lost money because you could have spent it somewhere else.
Correct. So we had 2 or 3 of those in a row, and by that time, 4, 5, 6 months had passed. That money from the retirement account was starting to fade. And I remember it clearly. I was finishing up a resolution list on a house. We were scheduled to make about 20 grand on the house. I got a call from the appraiser. And the appraiser said, I got some bad news. You're under contract for 210. The house appraised for 190. So almost exactly the amount that I was going to make on the house was wiped away with the appraisal. And that was one of those moments where it could have broke me. It could have sent me back to teaching. And I remember just going outside. I sat on the side of the house and I just wept. It was ugly crying. There was no masculinity to it. I just let it all loose. And after a while, just kind of feeling sorry for myself, something just kind of emerged within myself that, this isn't the man that I'm going to be. I'm going to provide for my family. I've got to be different. I've got to do different activities. The results so far are my fault. It's like I could blame other people, but the reality is I took on this deal. I did this whole thing. I could have learned something that would have prohibited me from doing that deal. So I had no money in my account. I was in a low point of my career, and it backed me into a corner. And at that point, I had to decide if I was going to make something of myself or if I was going to go back to the W-2 world.
Okay, so a couple of points here I want to make to everybody. One, I can guarantee you Michael does not regret this period of his life. I can also guarantee that Michael looks at these 5, 6, 7, 8 houses as some of the most important learning lessons he could have ever gotten. You cannot learn that through a video. You cannot learn that through even a mentorship, you have to go through these things. You have to touch the stove to make sure it's hot. You went through all those things. You felt the emotions. I want to point that out. You don't regret that time, right?
No.
Okay. Love that, because you got started. What would I rather have done? Would I rather be the person that says, I've been trying to get into the business for 5 years and I really haven't taken action? Or would I rather be Michael Franke that's sitting there weeping on the side of the house, losing his mind over the emotions he's feeling? Which one would you rather have? Because right here with Michael, you got millions of dollars of learning lessons, and you get the opportunity to show the world what you're made of. Freaking grit, dude. So that's the first point. Second point is, you stood up and you're like, I could quit. I'm not going to. You recognized, that this is still an opportunity. And the tough thing is your parents on top of that, because your parents were helping foot the W-2 loan processes and probably the finances of the construction loans themselves. So you probably, on top of all of this, felt like you were letting other people down besides just yourself.
For sure.
And then finally, you didn't intentionally put your back up against the wall, but now your back is up against the wall. What do you do now when your back is up against the wall?
So I was kind of a man possessed at that point. I had to convert and find some money. We were to that point where we were not going to be able to pay our mortgage, which is kind of poetic for the whole foreclosure thing that we're going to talk about. But I was not going to be able to make my next payment. And would my folks have perhaps bailed me out? Sure. But I did not want to go down that route. So I didn't have any experience in finding deeply discounted deals. It was all MLS stuff. So I just started driving around, and I found a for sale by owner, and it conveniently is in the neighborhood in which I live now. But I called the homeowner, and I said, what are you asking for the house? And they said a number that was absurdly low. I knew it was. That was my first time going direct to seller. I met with them. I signed the contract on the spot. All this stuff I had not experienced before. I'd never filled out a contract on my own. I'd never met with a seller like that. But it was a lot easier than I thought. That deal was super easy. Small renovation, listed the house, made 60 grand 3 or 4 months later. So I went from literally a few $100s in my account, no exaggeration, to 60. And it just opened my mind to the possibilities of what real estate investing could do.
Direct to seller or direct to agent? Which way would you rather go?
Direct to seller every day.
Yeah, me too. You and I are kindred spirits in that regard. My best friend Jamil is like the direct to agent guy. Same thing with Jerry Norton, loves direct to agent, but he's very, very good at direct to seller as well. For me, you drop me in the middle of Kansas City, or you drop me in the middle of any country, or not country, but county in the United States. You say you have a bomb strapped to your chest that says 10 hours, and that bomb's gonna go off in 10 hours. Rest assured, I am not calling an agent to get me a deal.
Yeah.
Because you went through that with agents. Now, it doesn't mean agents don't work. It just means that I feel as if when you go into high-level masterminds, you and I are part of other masterminds as well. We're friends with guys in high-level masterminds. I would say most of the guys that have scaled their wholesale operations are direct to seller.
For sure. And I still get deals from agents as well. We actually got one a couple of weeks ago, but it's not a reliable source for me.
I think it's more like a cherry on the top, right?
It is.
It's like
bonus.
You built your business, your cake, your direct to seller business is all the cake. You got a couple of cherries on top.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So you make 60 G's, 30 grand goes to your parents, 30 grand probably goes to you, correct?
That one, 60 grand was actually my part. So it was a big deal for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
60 grand was your part.
Yeah.
Wow, bro. I've been in those moments before where I have no money. In fact, the largest foreclosure check I've ever received is $130,000, and it's downstairs. It's a printed check. I had the title company print it. When I had that, when I got that check, I had basically the same situation going on. Like I had, it was the guy that foreclosed on me, the bad story that happened to me, and I'm sitting there going, I have no other choice but to be successful.
Yeah.
Because did you have kids by this point?
No, I didn't have kids till 2020, so no kids yet, but we were thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that was part of when I was so upset and not wanting to be the person that let his family down. We were starting to have the talks between me and my wife of having kids. And I'm like, if I keep making the amount of money that I am now, it's not going to work.
How was life at home when you were going through that?
It was a little bit challenging. I mean, fortunately, I have a spouse that had faith in me. The whole time, she never lost doubt or lost faith in me, but it was a challenge. I mean, we were both trying to figure it out, and we were in a situation to where, we go to the grocery store, you were putting stuff back on the shelf, you were using coupons. So I've been where you are that are watching this, and I've also experienced the highs of wealth now, so I can relate.
Love it. Now, one of the biggest factors of your success is, shout out to your parents, they raised you right, you love and enjoy hard work.
I do.
And so it's hard and confusing for people that are like, well, how do I get started? And they ask all these questions, and we're going to answer all these questions in this playlist, but I would say the number one determining factor of you being successful has got to be your grit and your wherewithal and your consistency and your work ethic.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if I had a superpower, it's persistence.
Yeah.
I've never quitted anything in my life. I wouldn't say that I've always been the best at something, but I will continue on until I'm pretty strong at it.
Yeah, I tell people, I don't think I'm the best at one thing, but I'm a cockroach. I just show up every day. You can try and kill me with pest control. You can try and, burn the house down where I live. I'm going to show up tomorrow. I'm a cockroach. I'll outlive the dinosaurs, dude. You cannot stop me. That's all there is. I'm too stupid to stop. That's what it is. Okay, so you fast forward, you get that 60 grand, kind of reinvigorates you. Are you feeling, wow, I need to just go direct to seller from this point forward? What was the thought process on where am I getting my next deal?
You would have thought that I would have learned.
No, don't tell me you went back to the table with agents.
So I did a few more deals with agents, and I started learning new ways of getting deals, wholesalers, different things like that. But there was a lot of plateauing going on for about another 18 months. And then there was a time where I vividly remember it, sitting on my back deck at home, no leads, no deals, kind of feeling sorry for myself a little bit. And finances were okay at that point. But I was feeling sorry for myself. My wife comes out on the deck. She kind of kicks me on the butt, and she's like, what are you doing here? It's in the middle of the day. Go work. Go do something. Provide for the family. At that point, we were really about to start getting pregnant, or trying to get pregnant. So she's like, go provide. So I'm kind of scrolling through my phone, have no idea what type of deal that I'm looking for. I see a little red dot on Zillow, and it says pre-foreclosure on it. At this point, I don't know anything about pre-foreclosures. It's been mostly agents and for sale by owners and stuff like that. So this house happened to be about a half mile from where I was sitting. A lot of people would have wanted to research this thing and kind of look into it and try to learn about things on YouTube or whatever. My first inclination was to walk to the house. I literally walked to the house. I stood at it was kind of a steep hill to the driveway, and I just stood there and I was shaking in my boots. I was nervous. I'd never door knocked a house before. So I went up to the house, I knocked on the door, they answered, and the first thing out of my mouth, I was like, hey, I'm Michael. I noticed that there was a foreclosure sale on your house next week. Hopefully you have it taken care of, but I just want to drop by and see how I could help. And it's funny how similar an opening script is now as opposed to the first time. So those of you who are thinking about, I need a perfect script, I need a perfect situation, I just went and took action. I said the first thing that came out of my mouth. They didn't cuss me out. They didn't slam the door. They embraced the situation. They poured their soul out to me. I was so stunned. I went and sat in their living room for about 90 minutes. They told me their whole story. And I didn't know a whole lot more about real estate than these people, but I knew enough more to be tremendously helpful for them. So at the end of the conversation, they said, look, we're going to pray about it. And I left, and I was like, there's no way I'm getting a deal. Next morning, they called me. I went over there, inked it up, and then I assigned it for 50 grand. And
was this your first wholesale deal at the time?
It wasn't my first wholesale deal. I'd done a couple, but it was my first pre-foreclosure and first assignment of that type of deal.
And you made 50 G's?
Made 50 G's. So my mind just explodes. I went from having no leads, no opportunity in my pipeline at that point to I found something online, I took action on it, I generated 50 grand out of thin air. It just blew my mind.
Wow. It is so great that you kind of took the hard way around. I think it's the right way because you now know what both sides feel like. You know what it feels like to be somewhat destitute. You know what it feels like to have a lack of leads. And then you also know what that feeling of complete elation of, oh my gosh, I just made 50 grand from helping a family.
Right.
In those 90 minutes, do you remember some of the main problems they were struggling with?
And they had a lot of problems. This was actually a really difficult seller, not in terms of them, but their situation. The wife had severe dementia. The husband didn't have a job. His memory wasn't the greatest either. And that deal, I actually had to go find a social worker to help me, because I was like, I didn't even necessarily feel confident in closing on this house because of the dementia situation. So I had this social worker come in. She kind of brokered the deal with me. And then we ended up having to find them housing, which was a challenge. I think we're going to make a video about that later on. But I had to be resourceful in that moment. I actually cold called a bunch of landlords, because these people had no credit. They had no money. Who's going to accept them? That's a normal landlord. So I finally got this guy on the phone. He happened to go to church with me. I didn't realize that at the time. And he's like, yeah, I got this 3-unit. One of the units is not in the best shape, but it's going to be a little bit till I can get to it. I got to go through some permitting stuff. They could live there rent-free for 6 months and it'd be fine. So I made some calls. I helped them move over there, and I was actually the person loading boxes and doing all kinds of stuff. Got them moved over there. So we provided them a ton of value. Not only did we make sure that they got about 150 G's in their pocket after closing, I made money, but I also helped them get to the next phase of their life in the most ideal fashion that you could.
Did you ever wonder why an agent couldn't have helped them sell their house?
I actually never thought that. It was just one of those things that, hey, this responsibility is on me. I feel that I need to help these people the best I can. And I took it all on myself.
Typically when a seller gets that close in a foreclosure, they've already tried to list with an agent, or an agent has come over to try and list the property, right? Agents see a pre-foreclosure pop up, they go try and get the listing. But was the house in bad shape? Is that why they didn't want to take the listing, you think?
The house was rough. It was an extreme hoarder situation, kind of the nastiest house you can think of. That's what this house was. But the surprising part to me was that I went up there, I talked to them, and they said that I was one of the first people that approached them. Now, they had dementia, so maybe they forgot, but I just remember thinking in my head, wow, is there really not very many people approaching these people and helping them out? So at that point, it was just a passion for me. I was hooked.
It's because as you stood on the curb and you were shaking in your boots, other people were looking at that listing on Zillow or whatever it was you were looking on, and they wouldn't even dare to get in their car,
right,
to even get to the point where they're standing there shaking in their boots, let alone pick up the phone and just talk to somebody. We're going to make we actually have a video coming up talking about all the ways that you can reach out to a seller and which one you should start with first and when you should use those communication efforts. Here you are shaking your boots, a guy who's done a dozen deals at that point, made a couple $100,000 in real estate, and you were shaking in your boots.
Yeah.
So I feel like door knocking, I tell everybody, if you want to have a 100% success in real estate, guaranteed you will succeed in real estate doing your first deal if you door knock. Why? Because nobody else is willing to do it.
I mean, there's a fear that something bad's going to happen. You're going to die if you go door knock a door. And my heart was going fast beforehand, but after that first knock, it was pure joy. Like, I really had a great conversation. I really helped these folks. And are you always a little bit nervous going to a door? Even to this day.
Even to this day.
If I go a couple weeks without doing something, maybe 6 months, I go up to the door and it's like that pitter patter's still there. But you know you have the skills and the ability to help these folks, and that should supersede any type of fear you have.
Yeah, it's like a callus on your hands when you're swinging a hammer on a construction site, or let's say you're going to the gym a lot, you get a callus, or for Eric riding a bike, a BMX bike, I remember I used to get these blisters on my little thumb pads. You get them? But the more you ride, the more callous those become. If you take a year off of riding, you go back, you're like, what the heck is wrong with my hands? They're bleeding again. It's because you took some time away, right? I think that's God's gift to us, is to remind us to be consistent, is that no matter how good you become, if you fall back and you stop being consistent, you kind of get punished for it. And it's the universe, Heavenly Father, God is telling you, just stay consistent, my friend. Stop giving up and stop doing the thing. But you get busy or you start building a team and you stop going into the living room. One of the things that you and I resonate with each other about and kind of have a common feeling is the guys, you're a visionary, I'm a visionary. We care more about helping people than we care about that check.
Yes.
So you get that emotional income. And the thing you probably miss today the most, because I know you're scaling your operation, it's been scaled for a while. The biggest challenge is fighting yourself from going into those appointments.
It is. I mean, it was a big transition. Not only could I close at a high level, I knew that deal was getting closed. So when I offloaded it to someone else, it's like, are you coming back with the paper or are you not? But that was the price of education. Over time, they've gotten better, and they've pulled a deal while I'm down here in Phoenix hanging out with you. But leadership's a completely different skill. I have fears and things that I'm overcoming with that. I'm getting better slowly. So it's a never-ending, evolving process, but it's a fun journey.
Personal development, man, it's amazing. What did Jim Rohn say? He said, your personal income will never outpace your personal development. And if you decided, I'm not going to build a team, I'm not going to become a better leader, your personal development stops, so does your personal income, right?
100%.
It always gets superseded. So your team now, what do you guys primarily, I don't want to overwhelm the audience because most people that are watching this are not going to be a Michael Franke situation. We're not going to have somebody watching this going, okay, I'm doing 4 foreclosures every single month myself. It's time to scale an operation. We do have some people in our community like Nita Patel, who's focusing on, she's a gangster, but she's in the position you were in a couple years ago where you would go, same thing with me in 2018, 2019, and the very beginning of 2020, we were primarily doing foreclosures, door knocking, we were doing 18 to 20 deals a month, primarily sub-2 deals. And at that point, we'd figured out how to scale into a team. Nita is just barely learning that. And she was going from 4 deals a month on her own to now 2 deals with a team.
It's beautiful.
You've been there.
I've been there.
Right? Because you hire that first person, all of a sudden production goes down because you're spending most of your time training and trying to be a leader, then having to replace that person because they're not doing the job and you're spending more of your time there. So then you fight yourself to just go back into the field for a while. Did you go through all that?
Oh, it still happens now. It's like if they haven't gotten a deal in a couple of weeks, I'm starting to get kind of fidgety. And it's like, guys, look, there are deals out there. They're complaining that there's nothing out there. And I'm like, we talked about this off camera, but I was like, I'm going to go film a YouTube video because I need one anyway. I'm going to go door knock. I'm going to show you what's up. So on the 3rd door knock, I knocked this guy. I set up an appointment. A few days later, he wanted to set up an official appointment in the living room. Signed that deal and assigned it for 35 grand. But these are great case studies for my team. It's like, look, we've gone over this time after time after time, but look, here's another example. Here's the conversation I had. Here's the value I provided. This is how I backed my way into the deal. So you continuously have to train your team.
Well, I could talk about so many of these topics for a long time. One of the topics I feel like we skirted over really fast is that somebody else watching how you got your first pre-foreclosure lead could have easily said, well, Michael, of course you were able to help that person because you went to church with the guy that was willing to give them free rent for 6 months, right? And they're going to think that was a leg up for you. You didn't have to work hard for that. You didn't know who that guy was.
No.
And there's so many times in other people's careers where I'll go, what happened to your deal? You were talking to me about it. You're going to make 80 grand. Did that deal not go through? No. We ran into a situation where the seller, this, that, and the other, they needed another place to live and I couldn't find them a place to live. And I'm like, here I am hearing your story. You also had that same situation, but what did you do? You picked up the freaking phone. You started making phone calls. You started opening up Pandora's box of solutions until you figured out, oh my gosh, you didn't find out that guy was in your church until he had already told you what the heck he was going to bring to the table.
I mean, guys, it takes persistence and amazing. If you do enough activities, luck seems to find you. So
the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's the weirdest freaking thing. Pace, you're so lucky. All these things happen for you. No, dude, if you saw me in my life, the other question people ask me all the time is, how do you breathe? You freaking are nonstop working. I'm like, because I'm over here shaking bushes, hoping that freaking opportunity pops out. I'm constantly shaking bushes. And that's what you've done in your career is you're like, okay, there's a problem. Let me shake some bushes and see what kind of fruit falls out. So getting into scaling your business. Today, what does your team look like?
We have 14 people on the team.
Holy moly.
So 2018, when I go and knock that door for the first time, it's just me. I'm a one-man crew, 3 years into it, and I didn't even have the confidence to hire someone until 2020, and a lot of that confidence came from Pace. The amount that he poured into me over the years is crazy.
It's what good friends do, dude. Like, I don't want to take the credit for that, but you and I have been friends, and a leader A leader creates leaders that creates leaders. And when I met you, I was like, this dude's gonna freaking take the world by storm. But it's like anything else. There's certain things that maybe your dad taught you. You didn't know how to do electrical work, then your dad taught you that. Like, you need friends around you. I learned from Michael Franke. I watch Michael Franke inside of our community with Caroline Kane doing so many trainings, and I watch how many people he's changed their lives. Like, this is the cool part about being part of a community, whether it's a church community, a Boy Scout community, a real estate community, everybody's helping each other. So you had a mental block of hiring people. I remember one of the first conversations we had about where you were stuck is you were talking about the way your partnership was split and and you're like, how do I, renegotiate this, or how do I do this, this, and this? Did you overcome that, or did you keep it where it's currently at?
It's still where it is.
Okay.
But what you did for me is you gave me permission to actually hire someone. I didn't feel worthy at that point. I don't know if there was an internal belief that I didn't feel like I was enough. Like, how many deals do I need to do before I can hire someone?
Or did you feel like, also, because you're a blue collar guy, right? And so am I. Did you believe that maybe you hiring somebody means that you're not the one doing the hard work anymore, and that kind of feels like you're lazy?
Now that you mention it, that's probably true. Both of my folks were, bootstrapping people. They do the work, and they're still like that, no matter how much I try to beat that out of them. I've gotten better at it over the years, but I really think that belief's probably there.
That's what my problem was. I think definitely that had to have been your problem, which your parents gave you this really cool thing that my parents gave to me, which was work ethic. And better than work ethic, it was the desire and the craving to work hard.
Right.
Like, somebody doesn't have to go to Michael Franke or Pace and go, hey, you know what, bucko? You gotta go work. Like, that's a default thing in us.
It is.
So thank you to my parents, thank you to our parents. But then the next part of the blueprint that we got from them was beyond work ethic was do it your freaking self.
Yep.
And so there's a subconscious thing of worthiness, and also, am I gonna be lazy if I'm asking another human being to do this job?
100%.
Okay, so you hire your first person. Is that person still with you?
No, I wish. But that first person was an acquisitions person. He had moved in from Las Vegas. He wanted a job. He'd actually had experience in this space for several years. He came in, he was a rock star, an A player that you want. I probably wasn't ready for this person.
I love this topic is so good. I tell people this all the time, that you are not ready for your first hire. In fact, you will probably waste some of their time in their life because you have to learn how to become a leader on your first hire. Is that what happened to you?
Oh, 100%. I had no systems, no processes, none of that. An A player would expect some sort of structure. There wasn't. Anyway, but we were great friends. I put him in the acquisitions role. I remember the first time that, I think it was an online lead. I can't remember what type of lead it was, but I begrudgingly gave him the lead and I was like, go close it. I'm just sitting there kind of twiddling my thumbs, wondering how it's going to go.
Looking at the clock. Is he done with the appointment yet?
He sends me a picture, which online I always do this, where I try to sneakily take a picture of my seller just because I want to remember it. But he sends me that picture and I'm like, no way. You can actually hire someone that can sign a contract. And that was probably one of my favorite deals I've ever done, because it's like, wow, I actually can delegate things and it can work.
Another level of proof of concept.
Yes.
It's interesting, all the money that you've made, up until this point, 2018, 2020, you hire this first person. All the money you made, do you still have all that money, or did you spend it?
Spent some of it, but we still have a lot of it.
Okay. My point to that is that the money is really important, but really the skill sets, the paradigm shifts, the muscles, like the confidence muscle that you get to flex and grow, that becomes the most important thing of all of this stuff. Like, look at the natural progression of, like, I'm doing it on my own with agents. Then I'm going to go tremble in my boots and knock this foreclosure, all the way to the point a couple of years later where you're hiring somebody and passing that off. Like, Michael Franke from 2015 would have never hired somebody, right? Like, he would have never gambled with that. Here you are in 2020. Yeah. He goes and gets a deal. How long did that relationship last?
He was with me for about 8 months, and he didn't want to leave, but he got a sweetheart offer. Another investor that he knew from Vegas opened up a We Buy Ugly Houses franchise, which I see Pace's note card up there.
Yep.
And offered him 50% ownership in that. And he came to me and he was like, look, I kind of want to cry even bringing this up, but this opportunity is too good. I'm like, bro, you got to take that.
What's the franchise's name in Vegas? He crushes it. He was my area manager.
This guy's name is Carl.
Carl Bassett.
Carl Bassett.
Carl Bassett. Shout out Carl Bassett. So Carl Bassett, actually a good friend of mine, back when I was in the Homebester days, he was actually kind of my regional manager. So I was in Phoenix. This is 2017, 2018. Carl, I think what he was doing is he was buying up people's franchises in Vegas so he could own more of the territory. He was realizing like, okay, as one franchisee versus 20, I'm gonna have a hard time doing my ad spend. So he just started buying up other franchises and then putting acquisition people in charge of those.
Interesting.
And at the end of the day, he owned all of them, but he had different acquisition people. It's so funny that you and I, our paths were crossing.
That's so interesting.
Just in a weird way until I met, you and I met 2020 basically. So, so he leaves and he goes to Vegas. He moved to Vegas.
No, he started a franchise in Kansas City.
Oh, he did. Oh, Carl Bassett bought a
Yes.
franchise there. Oh my gosh.
Which you would have thought would have been an ugly relationship.
No.
But we're actually great friends.
Do you guys ever JV on stuff?
Oh yeah, I did a deal with him 2 weeks ago.
Okay, boom.
Yeah, we're good.
This is thank goodness, thank you to the heavens that I found out about real estate, because in construction and in really any other industry, it's not as collaborative where you can be homies with actually your competition and you guys can make money on deals just sharing resources. It's like playing Pokemon cards. Hey, what do you got here? You're trading stuff all the time. So you guys are doing deals now, even 4 or 5 years later. Your business, how many people you said, 17 or 14?
We're at 14.
You're at 14. What are those people doing?
So right now I have got 3 acquisition guys. I've got a transaction coordinator, which was probably the best hire I've made to this point. After that acquisition guy left that I had talked about, that was the next hire I made. So I went back out into the field, rage, got a bunch of deals, and then hired her. She took all that off my plate. And over time, we've gradually built up. So I have an in-house agent that lists all my houses. I've got a person that goes direct to assisted living now. So that's an interesting niche list that we could talk about at another time. I've got a CFO, and I got my folks. I'm probably missing a couple in there, but there's 14 of us.
Do you have any cold callers?
I do have some VAs, no one specifically cold calling.
Okay, got it. So you're not primary. We'll talk about lead sources for him. He is in Kansas City. His business would look a little bit different in Phoenix or Miami or Dallas. Not much different, but there's different methods and things that cost money. Like, for example, direct mail is really expensive here in Phoenix. It's getting more expensive in Kansas City, where you guys are from.
Yep.
But right now it works really well, right?
Yeah, it works. Our lead costs have probably doubled, almost tripled in the last few years. But if you have the skill of buying deeply discounted deals, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if if the cost per contract, let's say, is $5,000, hypothetically, and the cost per contract goes to $7,000, yeah, it's expensive, $2,000 extra marketing for every contract. But the better your acquisition people are and your skills of efficiency and follow-up and all of that becomes, you're probably buying deals from $30,000 to $35,000. And so over time, yeah, things will get more expensive, but you'll also get better at what you do.
Absolutely.
Okay, are foreclosures what you primarily focus on, or is that too niche of a list in Kansas City that you focus on all sorts of lists?
So we still do the traditional marketing. We still do direct mail. I have a TV commercial that runs.
And it's you on there?
It's me. Yeah. People call for whatever reason. But we also do any of those traditional sources. I just bolted on pre-foreclosures just because I can't control when my phone rings. I can answer it and then I can control it from there, but I wanted something that I could control 100% of the time, and the pre-foreclosures and other niche lists helped us fill in the gaps.
Okay, if you're brand new, you open up a brand new market, it's just you don't have an acquisition team yet, and you have no money, but you know what you know, okay? Where are you going to get a deal?
I'm going online, I'm pulling a few lists. It doesn't have to be a big list, 10, 15, 20 addresses. Do I have a car?
Yes.
I have a car and I have a cell phone. I'm immediately going to those houses, door knocking, perhaps cold calling them with free skip tracing that's available. True People Search, something like that.
Yeah, True People Search is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good for free. And I would just bootstrap it, and I would imagine...
Would you knock the door before you call, or would you call before you knock?
So I would probably just go knock the door, because you can actually experience a lot while you're there. Hopefully you'll be able to talk to the seller, which is great, But if they're not there, maybe you identify that it's vacant. So then maybe you start calling. Maybe you go talk to a neighbor and they'll say, hey, they're actually at work right now, but this is when they get home. Maybe come back then. So you can just experience a lot while you're at the door. But as long as you do enough of an activity, I wouldn't say one is better than the other. They kind of complement each other.
Interesting. I love the answer. It's different than my answer. I would tell, in our door knocking team, again, I wish we did not shut down our door knocking team. We were cranking, doing really, really well. And COVID hit. Not only did I shut down the door knocking team because it was just, do we remember that COVID was actually even a thing? Holy crap, 4 years ago.
Crazy.
If you really think about it, it was 10% of my life ago. So like a lot has passed since then. But at the time I go, holy moly, the world is gonna fall apart. Our rentals are gonna fall apart. Our tenants aren't gonna pay. This is gonna be atrocious. Oh my gosh. And I run down to our office down here in Mesa, and we had 7 acquisition guys in person at the time. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, the world is gonna fall apart. But from my mouth as a leader, I'm like, guys, we're gonna dominate. We're gonna do this and this. We're gonna stop door knocking because we can't be in physical proximity to people. We just doubled down our cold calling, and it worked out fine. And then of course, boom, the market takes off. We make a ton of money. COVID from a business perspective was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. But we turned our freaking door knocking team off, and I should have never done it. It was the most effective way of getting deals that I've ever seen still to this day.
No, we love it. I mean, it's still my baby. I love getting out there and doing it. But guys, if you want to generate a deal from nothing, I mean, you can have within a couple of hours. I do it constantly, just going out in the field, getting the highly leveraged opportunities, knocking. You may not get a deal, but you're going to have a good conversation.
Yeah, you're going to have a good conversation. If you stop thinking about, I'm trying to go to the door and have a conversation, or get a deal, and think, I'm just going to have a conversation with another human being and learn a new thing, learn a new way of asking questions. That's the only thing you're trying to do is obtain a skill. You're going to win, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Are you taking people out and training them?
I train my team. I put so much stuff out on YouTube about this. But guys, if you want to be successful in this, and you're going to a door, you're cold calling someone, whatever you're doing, you have to check your heart at the door. You got to divorce your own desires and really care about the person on the other side. You immediately set yourself apart from every other person that's showing up to the door, because I don't know how many times I've showed up to a door, someone will answer it and say, there's been 10 other people here, but there's a vibe about you that I think you're different.
Yeah.
And if people can feel that energy, if you come there with just a pure heart and you're wanting to serve, people feel it.
Yeah, they can. I think the transparency age has been here for the last 5 years. I think with social media, it's really easy to see who's real and who's really not. And my first deal was that exact thing with your story, is that my first deal, this is also where our logo comes from in our community, is the bunny ears. I got my first deal from a lady who 15 people went to the appointment before me, 15 people went after me. She called me 2 weeks afterwards and said, I want to sell my house to you. Because I actually found her bunnies. I actually solved her problem with no expectation. I love what you just said. Check your heart at the door. These people can feel it, they can sense it. That family who prayed on it, they called you the next morning.
They did.
Because of how you made them feel.
Yeah, 100%.
Today we're going to be talking about the foreclosure recipe that he and his team follow. He's not going to talk about the 14 people and what they're doing on his team today. He's going to be talking about if he was you, in the YouTube audience, he has to start today. He has to get a foreclosure, let's say in the next 30 days, 2 weeks, 2 hours, doesn't matter. What is that recipe? What does that look like? Michael Franke, thanks for coming to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Okay, so I want to go after foreclosures. Let's start with why should I go after foreclosures versus high equity, low equity? What is so great about foreclosures?
What's so great about foreclosures is that there is a timeline and there is a motivation. And oftentimes a seller, they can't handle that situation on their own. And that's where we as an investor can come in, and that's where we shine. We really serve these people and meet them where they are, and just a great opportunity.
Love it. I call foreclosures the ticking time bomb of real estate. Or the hot potato.
Right.
It's the only lead source in real estate that I feel like I absolutely know these people have a timeline. I know when I should call them, versus like high equity, divorce, other things, probate. You're just never certain when the perfect time is.
Exactly.
Foreclosures kind of have a perfect time, the highest leverage to the lowest leverage. I mean, you can never go wrong just reaching out to a foreclosure regardless. but we're going to talk about your recipe today. So what's the first thing I have to know about foreclosures before I get started, as I get started, before I start putting my recipe together?
So the first thing you have to know is that it's not easy. Just like any type of investing, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some mistakes, but you have to be willing to commit to putting in the work, to being persistent. And when you don't get something in the first couple of days, you don't just say, hey, this isn't for me, I'm quitting. Okay, you've got to keep going.
Or DM me and say, Pace, I've been trying to make calls for the last 2 weeks and I haven't gotten a deal. I'm thinking about quitting. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, guys, DM me. I'm happy to serve. And it's not like you're too far off. You may be making those calls, but maybe you can just alter one little thing and it could change and get you a deal.
I would make an argument that people should follow your recipe that we're going to talk about. Do not deviate from it for at least 30 days before you start thinking you did something wrong. Would that be appropriate?
I think so.
Because I think the common thing that people do, and this is the enemy inside your brain that says, well, I haven't gotten a deal in 2 days, 2 weeks, or whatever it is. I'm going to assume it's something I'm doing, and really all that is your brain convincing you to not do the uncomfortable thing. So what Michael is saying is, it's going to be uncomfortable. Write that down on your notepad. This is going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to hate walking up to a seller's house, knocking on the door, getting spit in my face. Have you ever been spit in the face?
I haven't been spit in the face, but a lot of things have happened.
Okay, have you been, has a gun been pulled on you?
There have been guns at the side before, never anything that's pulled on me.
Perfect. If you are not expecting these types of things to pop up, then you're going about this wrong. It's going to be freaking hard is what he's saying. So let's write that down. That's part of the recipe. Expect challenges, okay? That's the number one thing. Expect challenges. Now, why should you expect challenges? Because I see people that think this is going to be easy. Nowhere in my life have I ever said anything that we do is easy. I do say it's simple, but I don't say it's easy. And so that's where we're going to start putting Michael's recipe on the board. We are going to bullet point this because the person that asked the question was like, please bullet point it. So Michael, I'm starting my foreclosure recipe. I know it's going to be hard. I know I can't just give up. I know that the reason I failed at foreclosures, let's say in 6 months after watching this video, and you come back to the video, you probably should leave a comment and say, the reason I haven't gotten a deal is because I gave up. We already know that that's going to be the thing. You either do the thing or you don't do the thing, and that's it. Would you say that there is a 100% likelihood of success? 100%, not likelihood, 100% guarantee if I knock a certain amount of doors that are foreclosure, even if I don't know how to speak perfectly, I don't have the perfect script, would you say that if I stay with it, I will 100% get a deal?
Guys, it's a 100% chance you'll get a deal. Everyone's time frame is going to be different. Or Mosey has some good content out there where he just says you got to expand your time horizon for success. So whereas I knocked a door and on my first one I got a deal, is that likely for everyone? Of course not. Maybe God at that point was just saying, hey, this is your calling. I'm going to open that door for you. But guys, if you get out there and you do the amount of activities that you need to do, you're either going to learn something, you're going to meet someone that can move it forward. Something is going to happen to generate an opportunity.
Okay, cool. So I'm starting all the way over. Let's say I'm starting all the way in Kansas City, which is your market. You know it really well. So let's start there. What's my first thing I got to do? I'm standing in my living room right now. I just finished watching this video with Michael and Pace. I'm standing in my living room. I've got a car and I've got a cell phone and I maybe have $100. What is my recipe to get a deal?
So the first thing you need to do is you got to find your leads, your data. Now, data is one of the most important things with foreclosure, as we talked about. There is a timeline to it. The more accurate your information is, the more lethal you can be with this information. So where do you get data? Now, every single market's going to be a little bit different. There might be good or different websites in each spot, but a good place that you can go, pardon my handwriting, USA Legal Notices.
USALegalNotices.com?
USALegalNotices.com.
Okay.
Now, when you get to that site, there's going to be a link to every single state, all 50 of them. Okay, find your market, simply click on that link, and then within there, they will have every notice that is published by that state. So with foreclosures, obviously those lenders are required to file a notice, and simply on that search bar, you can type in foreclosure sale, trustee sale, sheriff sale, whatever the term is in your state, and then they will have every legal notice that's popping up in that state.
Okay, cool. Guys, in the next video, we're going to talk about the timeline, and we'll add what the trustee is versus the bank in that next video as well. Like, who is actually doing the foreclosure is not the bank. The bank is not foreclosing on you, it's the trustee. We'll talk about that in the next video. So he might say some things today that we'll jump into other videos. I promise you watch the whole playlist, you're gonna get like a masterclass on this. So I go to usalegalnotices.com. I choose my state. What state is Kansas City in? It's in Ohio, right?
Missouri and Kansas.
Okay, Missouri and Kansas. They're the only state that I'm aware of that is, or city that's in two different states. There's a very different vibe on each side of the border, right?
Different vibe, different rules too in terms of foreclosures. But yes.
Interesting. So you're like the perfect person to talk to since are you in both sides?
I am.
Okay. I go to usalegalnotices.com. I'm going to, which part? Kansas City, Missouri or Kansas City, Kansas?
We'll start in Missouri.
Okay, start in Missouri. Why would you say Missouri? Somebody's going to be watching and they're going to be like, but he didn't tell me why they're starting in Missouri.
The Missouri side is just a little bit easier to understand. It's a little bit more straightforward. Non-judicial state, we could get into those terms. Kansas is a judicial state. It's kind of the wild, wild west in terms of pre-foreclosure. So from where we're starting, Missouri is probably a better start.
Okay, cool. We should do that as another video. That's video number 20 in the playlist. And we might not get through all of them today. We'll get through maybe 10, maybe 12 today. I'll hang out with Michael again. Maybe I'll fly to Kansas City. We'll do the other part to the playlist. But USA...
I'm gonna hold you to it.
I would love to. usalegalnotices.com. I go there. I choose Missouri. Okay, I go there. I type in foreclosure. Is there any drop-down thing so I don't have to guess what I'm typing?
So some of the sites have different drop-downs or selected or terms that are selected by people the most. Every site's a little bit different, but you just got to be resourceful. Use the terms that make sense in your state.
Okay, got it. So I'm getting this list. If I go to Missouri right now and I pull a list of pre-foreclosures, how many do you think I'm going to pull today?
So what you have to understand is they publish those 2 or 3 times during the foreclosure process. So there could be hundreds and hundreds of listings. You got to look for the unique ones. But in Kansas City, I would say at any given time, there's probably, give or take, 100 houses that have a foreclosure sale set. And then there's other ones that are in that notice of default stage, probably a couple hundred of those.
Okay, so we have a combined, I really like that. That's really good to notice. And we'll talk about that on the timeline video in the next video as well. Okay, I've got my list. How am I going to reach out to these people? Do I get a phone number from USA Legal Notices or do I have to figure out something else?
So, and just be aware that the information from here is not clean. They may become in a big paragraph of text and you've got to find information within there. But this is a good thing. A lot of people will give up at that point, so it raises the barrier of entry. So if you're willing to do the difficult things, it just makes it easier for you to get a deal. So from within that information, you're trying to find a name, first and last name. You're trying to find a legal description, an address, an auction date, any type of information that you can use to do your marketing activities.
Okay, now there are other websites that make this easier. They just cost a significant amount of money. One of them is Pre-Foreclosures Daily. You can also get these on Batch. You can get these on PropStream. You can get these on other places, but you're spending money on a subscription. And Michael's trying to help you avoid that right now. He's trying to make this easy for you to go do it inexpensively. Does me going in there and extracting the data, does that cost me any money?
Nope, not a dime.
Not a dime. So far we've not spent any of the $100. Okay, we still have that $100. I might still be in my living room on my computer typing this out. Am I going to extract the data and then put it in an Excel spreadsheet? What am I doing with that data?
There's a lot of ways that you can do it, but a good way is if you want to do it yourself, that's fine. If you want to hire a VA, you can do that as well. But take that information, put it in a simple Excel spreadsheet, and you're ready to go.
Okay, can you put in, step number 2 is organize.
Yep.
Let's organize the data.
So step 2, you're going to organize the information that you found.
Okay, and that could be Google Sheets, it could be Excel, it could be whatever. Now, I have the data, I have the names, I have the addresses, I have maybe what date the auction is set, whatever it is, whatever data I want to put in there. Now what? What do I do now?
So you can really enhance your information even more. What you have to realize is that these foreclosures, oftentimes they're canceled, sometimes the date is changed, sometimes they have information about the opening bid.
So I organize my data, and is this the time for me to now start taking action?
Yeah, obviously you've already taken action already, but now...
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree, Michael. I think that the action starts the second you actually speak to a human being. So when you say,
love that.
when you say, and I just came up with this today, this is not a thing I felt, but I think a lot of people will do this and this over and over and over and over. Then they'll go on Zillow and they'll scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. That's not taking action, really. That's getting ready to take action. I think the next step might be taking action.
Taking action. And like we had talked about in a previous video that we had filmed, the day that I found out about pre-foreclosures, I saw a piece of data. It was on Zillow. I saw that that address was close by, immediately took action. I didn't organize data, I didn't skip trace it. So the quicker you can take action, the quicker you're gonna get a result.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you right now, I would not have done either one of these because my personality, and same thing with him. But the overthinkers are engineers, okay? The people that are like, I need to know step by step by step. He's giving that to you right now. He's giving the overthinkers a recipe. The underthinkers like me, I'm like, bro, tell me what house to knock on. Right? So is that what I'm doing on step 3? Is I now have the data, or do I need to maybe get the phone numbers?
So step 3, you can either start door knocking with the addresses you already have, or if you would like, you can go ahead and skip trace. Now there's obviously a lot of different paid resources. Batch is one, Skip Genie's a good one, or you could go to different free sites like True People Search that have pretty good information, even though it's free.
I think True People Search is so slept on because people assume that if I'm not spending money on a product, that I'm not getting any value from it. I would say that you're probably 70 to 80% likely to get the right number through those. You're like 95% likely on skip tracing through like Batch or Skip Genie. So it's not that big of a difference to spend a ton of money in the front end. I think if you haven't done a deal before, everything should be, how do I get a deal with no money, right? Like Michael talked about in video number 1 in the playlist, he just freaking literally walked down the street. How much did that cost you?
$0.
$0. Let's stick on the $0 train. So I'm skip tracing this. I go to True People Search. I think that you said either or. I don't think we do either or. I think in my data, on my spreadsheet, I'm going to skip trace through True People Search. And even though you're going to give us advice, okay, I think you're going to give us advice that the next step is just go door knock. You would prefer to door knock before you cold call. I think it would be nice to have the phone number that if I do door knock and nobody's home, I then can then call them or text them after the fact.
So again, the way I started was door knocking. I prefer door knocking just because there's so much more information that you can gather from that experience. But if you want to cold call immediately, there's nothing wrong with that because it's a speed to lead thing. The second you see that piece of information, you cold call that person, you can get on the phone right away. So it would be preferable, and I know we're talking about just starting, we only have one person on our team, but if you happen to have 2 people on your team, it would be wildly valuable.
Maybe your wife?
Yeah, one person goes and knocks, one person calls, and you're likely to get a hold of someone.
Okay, cool. So we've got our list. We've done some research. How much time do you think this should have taken them to pull the data, organize the data, skip trace the data? Is this 3 hours, 4 hours maybe?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Now, when I'm doing it weekly or daily, it's probably another 20 to 30 minutes because I now get to a point where I understand how USALegalNotices.com works. I can kind of identify the newer ones because I'm kind of on top of it. This might be 2 or 3 weeks down the road. I now am only spending 15 minutes a day doing that, correct?
No, I think that's pretty close.
Okay, cool. So a couple of hours, maybe let's say 4 hours when you first start, 2 hours your next day, an hour the next day, and that kind of dwindles down to probably 15 minutes a day is what Michael's saying. So I've skip traced. What are you doing, Michael? Are you calling these people or are you getting in your freaking car and knocking some doors?
I'm getting in my car and knocking some doors.
Okay, so let's put that down. Number 4, knocking some doors. Now, let's talk about the things that people always ask. Michael, what time of day should I be knocking doors?
So obviously every person in pre-foreclosure is going to have a different situation. They work at a different time of day. They have a different sleep schedule.
Okay.
You could have that situation where you're trying to decide, well, what is the perfect time that I'm going to knock? The reality is the perfect time is the time that you're willing to dedicate to it and be consistent. So if you want to get out there...
They don't want to hear that answer, Michael. They don't want to hear the answer that's going to just force them to stop overthinking and go actually knock the door. There has to be a perfect time. There has to be a time that if you don't knock at that time, you're not getting a deal.
Right. Well, you can think that, but I've signed deals from door knocking at 5 a.m., noon, midnight. It doesn't matter. The reality is if you get out there and take the action, it's going to happen.
Okay, so let's say on my timeline, The answer is, what time of the day is you? It depends on you. Are you a stay-at-home mom with a couple of kids and you get a couple of hours in the afternoon as reprieve, your husband might come home, or vice versa? Are you a husband that gets home, the wife makes dinner, after dinner is done, you go, hey, sweetheart, I'm gonna go drive around, let me take the kids, I'll leave them in the car as I knock the door, whatever that may look like. The answer that Michael's giving you is that depends on you and what time you can allocate consistently. Because again, what did we talk about in the very beginning? Expect challenges. It's going to be hard. But the way you fight through that is you have to be consistent, right? You have to stay on top of it and you will ultimately get a deal. So I knock doors, I understand my timeline. Another question that people constantly say is, what's my script I say when they first open the door and they say, and we have another video about this, but I think these are the questions that keep me from actually taking action, because you didn't have a script when you first went to the door, right?
No, I didn't.
Has your script changed a lot?
It's remarkable how little it's changed.
Oh, I love this. So when he told the story in the previous video about how he got his first deal, as he's saying the opening line to me in this interview, I'm like, that sounds almost exactly like a perfect script, right? The perfect line. And your script, what would you say is a great opening line to somebody?
So here's kind of a simple framework that you can use. Introduce yourself, then address the situation. I'm a type of person that wants to put the issue out there. You're gentle about it, but you put it out there. And then you're there to help. So here's an example. Hey, my name's Michael. I noticed your lender was giving you grief and there's a foreclosure sale coming up next week. Hopefully you've got that taken care of, but I just want to drop by and see how I could help.
Oh my word. You know what I love about the psychology of this is that you said, I saw your lender was giving you grief. The reality is, guys, the lender's not giving them grief. The homeowner is giving the lender grief by not abiding by the contract. The borrower, the person who's living in the house, is breaching contract with the bank. So really, if Michael was honest, he'd say, hey, I saw you stop making payments, you're gonna lose your house. But now what has he done? He's created an enemy. Michael's too smart for that. Okay, what Michael says is, I saw your lender was giving you grief, because every time you talk to a foreclosure seller, they're like, yeah, the freaking bank this and the freaking bank that. I tried to write them, I tried to call them, they're not helping me. I've tried to reach out to them, I've been doing everything I can. They are the reason why I'm getting foreclosed on. They'll never blame themselves. And so his opening line, oh, that's so good. I saw that your lender's giving you grief. You might have that taken care of. I don't know. Just wanted to check in and see if there's anything I could do to help.
Pace said the key word. We've created a common enemy. So you've gone from a stranger at the door with no commonality with the seller to all of a sudden, hey, let's join together and fight the lender together.
Misery loves company, right? Human beings love to have somebody as a comrade in arms. And so what Michael's doing here is he's saying, let me lock arms with you. I'm here to help. And then what it does is it disarms them. They realize he's not going to attack them. Michael's attacking the bank. Other people that door knock in the very beginning, they won't door knock like Michael does, but they'll door knock and they'll say something like, hey, I saw you were in foreclosure, just wanted to stop by and see if you're open to selling the house. That's where you get yelled at. That's where you get spit on. That's where people go, what the hell are you talking about? But when you say the bank is giving you grief, and I saw that and I just wanted to see what I could do to help, I'm a wealth of resources, I've been doing this a long time, what do you need? It then allows the seller, right, Michael, to tell you their whole story?
Yeah, it disarms them. All of a sudden, they feel like they can trust you. There's immediate rapport, and then they feel like they can share that information with you because you're there to serve.
Okay, so how about this? My next question is, what do I wear when I'm door knocking? This surprisingly is a common question that pops up all the time. Do I wear a collared shirt, or do I do what Pace and Michael wear, which is jeans and a hoodie?
So I always wear what I normally would wear right now. I want to immediately have them identify that we're similar. I don't want to be wearing a suit or some fancy collared shirt with logos and stuff. They immediately kind of disassociate with that. Some things that may be a little bit controversial in terms of dress. Pace loves his hat. Other people might wear shades. You want to appear just clean and let the person see your face from the door. That way they'll answer at a higher rate.
Yeah, there's people that can pull off a hat, me.
Yeah.
Other people that
If you're
can't.
as good looking as Pace, it'll work.
Exactly. And you guys, by the way, yes, I do have plenty of hair. I'm not balding. People think I am balding.
I don't have that gift.
Sunglasses are not a good choice.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, they can't see your eyes. Immediately, they can't lock in with you and connect.
We see each other's souls through our eyeballs. So really good point. Logos, not a good idea because they associate you with who?
with that company.
Right. Or maybe the bank.
Or the bank.
Or another creditor, right? A lot of these people actually turn their phone numbers off. Either they turn them off by choice, or they got their phone shut off because they can't make the payments.
Exactly right.
And so they feel like somebody showing up all fancy-dancy, tucked in shirt, actually feels a little bit stuffy, and they feel like you're coming to collect money from them.
100%. I mean, you have this company that they already hate. You're kind of identifying as another big company. It's almost good to not necessarily be a mom and pop approach, but you're just more approachable.
You know the best note that I leave at a house? Do you guys leave notes?
I do.
My favorite note that I leave at a house is a paper plate.
Okay.
So you know the paper plates we all grew up, like you had to double down on how many plates you had because like mom's gravy would soak through the one paper plate. So you had 2 paper plates. So what I would do is we would leave paper plates. Our drivers would have big 500 stacks of the paper plates from Walmart, and we would write our note on the paper plate. Why? Because it makes you look like a neighbor down the road that was like, crap, I don't have anything else to write on. Let me grab this out of my pantry and stuff this in their door. It's like, well, okay, this is obviously a neighbor. Hey, concerned neighbor here. Want to see if you solved the problem the bank is giving you grief. I'm a concerned neighbor. Want to see if there's any way I can help. Blah 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 blah. It actually looks like you're a neighbor.
After people watch this video, there's going to be plates all over the country on doors.
I know. Okay, so timeline, you got that. That's such a great answer. I love that. Script, your script, best script I've ever heard. We never used that. Like being able to say, I saw the bank was giving you grief. Oh, so good. Great script, love that. What do I wear? Got that as well. Last question on door knocking before obviously we're gonna have other videos about door knocking, but here's another one. Should I go alone or squad up with somebody?
So personally, I would prefer to go alone. You think about a single woman in a house. Imagine if Pace and I were standing next to each other at the door. That's just a little bit intimidating. Now, I prefer to go alone, but I know Subto, it's all about squatting up. So guys, if you're gonna go out there, you'll have a dynamic between your partner. So obviously that can work too, but I've found that one person approach may get them to open the door at a little bit higher rate.
Also,
what do you think about that?
I agree with all of that. I think solo is best way to go. I agree with you entirely. However, I think if you are gonna go together, if you're a single girl like, Nita Patel in our community, she goes and door knocks on her own as a single woman. She's got balls of steel, right? She's got more balls than most dudes I know. But if you're a single woman and you're like, I don't want to go knock doors, it's not safe. There are definitely times you've been in a situation where it wasn't safe, right?
Oh, for sure.
So I would go with people, if you're a single woman, and I would have them sit in the car probably. And if you need help, then you can wave at them or something like that. Like make sure they have their eyes on you. I think everything you said is perfect. I would also add the layer of you don't want people to think you're missionaries. Okay, I was a missionary for 2 years in Korea, and people hate missionaries. They're like, oh my gosh, you're gonna sell me Jesus. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna sell you Jesus, and I'm gonna convert you, baby. Let's go. So I would definitely say 2 people dressing professionally look more like missionaries than you do like somebody that's gonna help them. Somebody wearing a black hoodie, regular blue jeans, and some Hey Dude shoes, 100% looks like a neighbor down the street that's like, hey, saw what happened, want to see if there's a way I could help. Boom, disarming your regular Joe Blow. Also, one of the reasons why you're so effective is because you show up as yourself, right? If you are dressed authentically, how you show up, and you're comfortable in your own skin, they're gonna feel that.
Yeah, guys, don't try to show up as something you're not. Don't wear things that you don't normally wear. You wanna be as comfortable as you can. That way they feel that, and then they're comfortable.
Okay, cool. So I knock a door. Let's go through a couple of A-B things here for you. Okay, A, they answer. Okay, and B, they don't, okay?
Perfect.
And I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions. They do answer. You already said your bomb script. I love it. They then tell you their story. Is my objective to try and contract with them right there, Michael, or is my objective to set an appointment to come back later?
Now, obviously, you would like to do a one-knock close, but those are very few and far in between. So what you're trying to do then is get what their story is. Try to understand what their ideal realistic outcome is, and then get some type of micro commitment. So have a really good conversation. If they want to continue into the living room, by all means, but more than likely they're going to want to set up another time to talk. So try to make sure that you get a phone number 1,000%. try to get a next meeting, whether that be by call or at the house. You for sure have to get the micro commitment.
Okay, micro commitment, I love all of that. You said story, which I really love. Let's imagine that you go out, you follow Michael's recipe, you get your first contract, and you send a DM to Michael Frankie on Instagram. Him and I communicate for years on an Instagram DM. So you're hyperactive there, I'm hyperactive there. I send Michael a DM, I get my first deal, I go, Michael, oh my gosh, that series that you and Pace did, oh my, this was so helpful, I got my first deal. Michael's gonna reply and go, tell me the story. If you don't know what was going on in their life, why did they get in pre-foreclosure, what other problems are happening in their life, what's kept them from just selling through a real estate agent, if you haven't asked these questions, it's gonna be really hard for you to actually know how you're bringing value to the situation. So I love that. You wanna hear their story. More questions than talking, right?
Oh, if I'm talking more than they are, there's a problem.
Okay, write that down, guys. What are some good questions to ask people?
So really, I just like something that you've always said, catch me up to speed with the situation.
You know what's funny is like your authentic question you ask on your first appointment with your seller, you haven't changed much with your script.
Not at all.
My first conversation in my deal, it was just authentically showing up going, catch me up to speed. And it just worked. Nobody gave me that script, nobody gave you your script, you just did it. And it became a thing because that's who you authentically are.
100%.
Right? So catch me up to speed is a good question. Let's say they tell the story. Do you ever ask a question like, what's kept you from selling the house so far? Like, why have you not gone through a real estate agent?
So I tell them to catch me up to speed. I completely understand the situation. And then I kind of go into a framework of discussing all of their options.
Okay, options. Now, I've done some videos with Brent Daniels on foreclosure options. Do you have another list of options?
So you had the one with 8, which are really good. I've condensed mine down to 5, just the ones that are the most prevalent. Okay. So those are the ones we go over.
Okay, you have 5 options. Maybe that's a whole video we do there. We're gonna do 2,800 videos, guys, on foreclosures. It's gonna be amazing. Austin's never gonna have lunch today because we're gonna be working our guts out. Eric's over there probably already planning lunch, okay? All right, so love it. You're getting the story, you got your 5 options, you get the phone number, up to speed. People want to know the recipe, so let's ask the recipe. I've got their phone number, they know my 5 options, they like me, I showed up, I'm Michael Frankie, got great lines, great questions, building rapport, I care about them authentically. You said earlier, check your ego at the door, is that what it was?
Check your heart at the door.
Check your heart at the door, okay? You've already checked your heart at the door, you're there to truly help them. What's the percentage of people that you would say you contract right then and there?
So the amount of times that I've closed on the spot, first door knock, maybe 10 or 15 times ever. It's not real often that happens.
Would you say that's 10% of the time?
Probably a little bit less.
Okay, so 5%.
5%.
So guys, here's the other thing that Michael's saying to you is he's saying lower your expectation of trying to close the deal there. Every time I try, dude, isn't the worst when you're trying to close a deal in somebody's living room?
Well, and that's another thing. If you can go into a sales thing and not be worried about the deal, you're just focused on them, and if you provide enough value, you get the deal. It changes the dynamic. You're not forcing something into existence, it's just natural.
This is so good, and Michael talks about this a lot in the Subto community. He does it. When do you and Caroline do your video?
Thursdays at 1 o'clock Central Time, so that's noon Arizona for at least a couple more days.
I think this is really good advice that you're basically sticking, or you're putting up there. You're basically saying instead of going in to try and get a contract, because I'm not walking up to the house with a clipboard.
Oh, please don't.
Oh my gosh. Like, you imagine? Hey, see, you're in foreclosure. I got myself a little contract here. Let me try and contract you. That's not what you're doing. So you don't even have a contract on you.
I have it in the car, don't get me wrong. Only when they are ready.
Right. So your objective is what Michael's saying is you want to leave that house with the contact information, with rapport, and a story. After you've given them their options, you want to give them something to think about. That is what you're leaving that house with. That's the only pressure you should put on yourself, saying, okay, I got to get the story. I want to know how I can help. I want to know that they've given their all five options. I want to know I have a contact information that's reliable. And I want to know that I have basically a timeline or an expectation of when they're supposed to reach out to me, a follow-up. Cool, got it. We're going to talk about closing and all that kind of stuff in other videos, but let's now talk about what if they don't answer?
Right. Now, the tendency is if they don't answer, You kind of just hustle out of there. Oh, good, they didn't answer the door. I don't have to talk to them. Okay, so at that point, if you don't leave some type of marketing material, Pace mentioned plates, which I love and I'm going to do.
Try it. Tell me if it works in Kansas City.
I will.
Get some, actually, if you really want it to work, get some, like, go to Peter Piper Pizza or Pizza Hut and get some of their little oil that's on the pepperoni pizzas and sprinkle it on every plate so it looks like you actually took it off your table. Like, get some gravy on there. What's Kansas City food? What do you guys eat over there?
Barbecue.
Okay, get some barbecue sauce, rub it on the edges, whatever you got to do. So they don't answer. A newbie's going to feel excited. Did you ever feel excited after somebody did not answer?
So sometimes you obviously want them to answer, but at the same time it's like, oh good, I don't have to talk to them. But if they don't answer, you don't just leave, then the trip's worthless, okay? You need to leave some type of marketing. So you could either have some type of flyer from your company, you could have a sticky note, you could have a plate, okay? You wanna leave something behind, that way you're digging your well, and at some point, someone will reach out.
What do you mean by digging your well?
So obviously, I've always said it that way in terms of you do enough marketing activities, the water will fill up over time. You're just putting water into the well, and eventually something will pop out the top.
Okay, love that. Now, if you're on a tight budget, you're not going to be going out, and this is where a lot of people overthink. They'll overthink the questions like, what do I wear? What, do I go alone? What's my timeline? The other thing that people will commonly overthink is, I'm going to go get the most perfect business card. I'm going to get the most perfect marketing flyer. I'm going to make sure that I got a logo on my shirt and I'm tucked in and all that kind of stuff. I would say that that's not a big need on the marketing material. I think once you scale and you've got a team, I think it's really nice to have those. It's perfectly good. But sticky notes, are they just as good in a lot of ways?
Oh, guys, it's wildly valuable. Just like we talked about with the dress, you don't want to have some sort of logo on your shirt, you get stuffy. If you have a really nice type of flyer, that can appear kind of stuffy too. I've contracted, I don't know how many deals having a sticky note and it just says simply, I can help, phone number.
You know what I did for this was before I built my door knocking team. When we built our door knocking team, I realized this would be not cost effective, but I used to get $1 bills from the bank and I would write, I can help, and my phone number on the dollar bill in Sharpie, and I would slide it in the door. And now they look at a sticky note. Sticky notes are really effective. Dollars are very effective too. They look at the dollar like, holy crap, this guy defaced freaking federal dollars.
It'll definitely get a response.
It'll get a response. F you, whatever it is. Okay.
Hey, I have their phone number then, we're gonna follow up.
Now on the don't, before we move on to like the marketing, and I think there's a follow-up process that you definitely had of whatever, but would you say, I've knocked one time, I've done my job, I don't need to knock a second time?
No, guys, if you didn't hit them that one time, maybe their schedule, they weren't there, you need to come back a couple of times and schedule some follow-ups.
Okay, so I'm gonna write on here on the don'ts, I'm gonna say you should probably knock 2 times in a row. I know this sounds really simple, but I think what happens a lot of times is that people need to know that when somebody doesn't answer, it doesn't mean they're not home. It just means they're like, is that one of the neighbors asking me for sugar? I don't want to go. But when you knock a second time, you ever had somebody knock on your door and you're like, screw that, I'm not answering the door, and they knock a second time, you're like, oh! Yeah. And you get out of bed and you walk down. You got to knock a second time. Right then and there, before you do any of the notes, you got to knock a second time. Do you teach your door knockers that one and done is all they got to do?
No, I want them to stay there for a couple of minutes. You're not being creepy or anything, but remember who your clientele is. Maybe they work at night and they're sleeping, or maybe they're in the bathroom, or maybe it's an elderly person and it just takes them a minute to get to the door.
Yeah, your first pre-foreclosure is 2 elderly people.
2 elderly people.
Okay. All right, knock a couple of times in a row, wait a couple of minutes, love that. I then leave a note. What's my note say? I can help, give me a call?
Yeah, don't overthink. Let it be reflective of your personality. For me, I've tried every type of note out there. They all work if you do enough of the activity.
Okay, I like that. I like the personality side. The problem is you and I know each other's personalities, like we know ourselves. I have no problem with that. I'll be funny. I'll say a stupid joke. I'll draw a stick figure with a dog. I'll do something because I'm just trying to have fun. But I really like that. Make it more about your personality. How do you naturally speak? Michael, here's the funny thing is Michael, let's say he's the best of the best of the best at door knocking and foreclosure, which I think he is. Name somebody better in the comments if you can find him. He's the best, at least that is on social media. Maybe there's a gangster dude out there that is just slaying dragons we don't know. But I can tell you that there's sellers that will sell to you before they would sell to Michael.
Absolutely.
Personality, the way you show up, you probably resonate with 90% of people, but there's 10% of people that don't resonate with you and that would only sell to a woman or only sell to an older person that looks like they've been in the business for 40 years, right?
Well, and it's interesting. I have a team of 2 or 3 guys that are going out and trying to find these same deals. Sometimes they have an interaction with the seller and it doesn't go well, and they'll say, hey, look, I got a hold of the seller, it didn't go well. I'll send one of my other guys out there, completely different story. Don't get offended. It's just that they didn't jive with you. And it's happened to me. I've gone out there, they didn't care for me for whatever reason. I've sent one of my guys, they inked it, and at first you're kind of like, oh, come on now. But it's like it takes all types to close these deals.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want a basketball team with only Shaquille O'Neals or only Kobe Bryants. You need multiple different personality types, different looks, different sizes, different ages can be really, really effective. Building a team is super helpful. A woman for us was when we added Anna Martinez to our door knocking team, there was like 20% of sellers, typically men, that are like, I'm not doing business with another man. I don't want a man helping me, but the nurturing feeling of a woman, like a motherly feel, helped them feel comfortable giving us more information. You ever run into that?
I have. I mean, sometimes, especially on the phone as well, and we can talk about that down the line, but sometimes a man can come across as abrasive. They immediately don't want to talk, but a woman is kind of soothing sometimes.
Okay, cool. So I've knocked twice, leaving my note, have it back based on your personality. I'm gonna stick around for a couple minutes. I'm gonna knock twice, maybe even 3 times. Fight the urge, guys. That's what Michael's saying, is fight the urge to walk away from that door and saying, I'm afraid to talk to these people. I'm glad that they did not answer. Okay, so on the don'ts, let's put a hard line here. I've now left the house, I'm leaving the house. What's my follow-up sequence? You already mentioned the first part, so let's write that down. The follow-up sequence of somebody not answering the door is you're saying go back at different times. Why is that?
Guys, if you're not getting a hold of them on that first time, it's likely that's when they work or they have some type of other obligation. You want to come a different time. Maybe it's not at 9 in the morning, it's at noon, it's at 5 o'clock. Other times that people are likely to be home is a good time to come back.
Yeah, we had a foreclosure deal we did. This is back 2019. We had a truck driver. We didn't know he was a truck driver. Shouldn't have given you a punchline. But he was doing long haul drives all over the country. And our team would be like, dude, this guy's going to lose his house in 15 days. Nobody can get a hold of him. Sticky notes are staying on the door. Nobody's doing anything. Oh, wait. Sticky notes were being taken off the door.
Yeah.
This is where the punchline comes from. So sticky notes were being pulled off the door. We were going back to his house. When you're closer to the foreclosure, I'm sure that Michael has this process down even better than I ever did, is you start knocking a little bit more frequently closer to the auction. And what happened is the sticky notes were coming off. The notes were coming off. The sticky notes weren't there. And we couldn't get a hold of the guy. We just stayed on top of it. Like 2 days before the foreclosure happened, the guy answers the door and we're like, dude, where you been? He's like, oh, I drive truck. I haven't been here for 2 weeks. But somebody's been taking the notes, man. We thought you were here. He goes, oh no, that's my dog sitter. My dog sitter come and take, like, it's amazing the stories you hear when you just stay persistent. And so there's probably that truck driver out there that does that night shift. They work early, they work late. Maybe they're working their guts out. Maybe they're sleeping at a friend's house and they come by only once a week. That happens all the time too. None of these sellers are cookie cutters of each other. They're very, very unique in what kind of people they are.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so what's my follow-up? I keep going different times. Am I now calling and texting them on top of this?
So before you even leave the property, one of the most valuable things you can do is take notes, whether it be in your CRM or whether it's paper. Share everything that you've seen. What does the house look like? What's the condition?
Okay.
Did you speak to a neighbor? Write down any insights you gathered from there. Obviously, down the road, it could be 2, 3, 4 weeks, 6 months, depending on the state and your timeline. Any type of information that you can have, and when you get a hold of that seller, can be the difference between a deal and not a deal.
I like Michael. He's said this a couple of times. My team never did this because we didn't have Michael leading our team. If we had Michael leading our team, I'd be a lot richer now. But what I like about, you've mentioned this in this video and the previous video, talking to the neighbors. Our team never did that.
Yeah.
What type of things does that give you in terms of benefit talking to a neighbor versus you drove your butt all the way out there, you knocked twice, you followed up, you stood on the doorstep, and you just leave without talking to a neighbor? What benefit am I going to get doing one or the other?
So let's say you're a traditional neighborhood. You have a neighbor across, left, right. Usually one of those people
is a Karen.
Yes, without a doubt. But one of those people is going to know that person, and they're going to be willing to share maybe a phone number, their situation. And of course, you have to be a little bit gentle when you approach the neighbor because you're kind of airing a little bit of dirty laundry. So you're not just going to be like, hey, Pace, I noticed your neighbor is in foreclosure. Let's talk about that. Just be like, hey, I noticed your neighbor is kind of going through a little something. I just was trying to get a hold of them and see how I can help. And then sometimes they know about the foreclosure and they know about these different things. And then they'll open up just like the homeowner might. This person's friends, they've known them for a long time. They may just give you a phone number. They may reference you to the homeowner, which is a great thing if you can get a referral from a neighbor.
This is so good. So when I was knocking doors myself, this was a hard thing for me. I think you're a better leader than me, but it was a hard thing for me to get my team to knock neighbors' houses, or even if you hang out for 15 minutes, you're going to see people coming in and out of their homes. Yes. You don't have to knock another door a lot of times. Hey, hey, neighbor, hey, can I talk to you for a second? Type of thing. So I had this lady, it's actually the biggest wholesale check, or biggest foreclosure check. I've mentioned it in the previous video, 130 grand, couldn't get a hold of the lady, ever, knocked her door. And finally, I went to her house and I'm like, all right, I'm just chilling. And what I was doing is I was like hanging there, texting and whatever, and a neighbor comes out, I was like, hey, does anybody actually live here? Oh no, she doesn't live here. She inherited the property. It has a ton of debt on it. She's tried to sell it with a real estate agent. Nobody could help that lady. So she said, F this house is what she told me. I was like, do you have a way to get a hold of her? He's like, yeah, I got her phone number. Oh my gosh, I got the new number. That one conversation with the neighbor made me $130,000.
Yeah, sometimes these neighbors want a dish. It's like a little bit of a story that they want to share. It's been something that's going on in their life.
Man,
it's like, someone wants to talk about something that's interesting. Let's go.
You guys have different words in Kansas City that you guys actually use. Like the neighbor wants to dish. I love that. They want to dish. Okay, perfect. So what's my follow-up, right? I know you guys are currently using a CRM, but when I'm brand new, the best CRM is just Yellow Pad, right?
Yeah, anything that you have.
Okay, am I scheduling in my time, like maybe on my calendar, I'm saying come back at a different time and I'm actually putting it on my calendar? How am I keeping track of these? Because in Kansas City, I got 100 of them.
Yeah, so my goal is to knock these deals 3 times during that foreclosure period. And again, I have other guys doing it. You may not be able to get to all of those. You're maybe gonna go back and door knock the ones that maybe you didn't get a hold of someone. If you talk to someone, you're probably not coming in back and door knocking it again, but try to hit them 3 times. During that period of time, you're more than likely going to catch them or a neighbor.
Okay, perfect. So I've got my 3 times. Now, he's not talking about I knock the door 3 times while I'm standing there. He's saying 3 separate times at 3 different time frames. I would say probably before noon is one. Another one definitely before evening. Another one would definitely be maybe after dinner time. And if you want to go crazy, weekend.
Saturdays are great.
Saturdays, okay.
Everyone's home.
Saturdays are higher likelihood. Okay, love that. And also for the people out there that are newer, Saturdays should be good for you because you should have a 9-to-5 job. If you're struggling, I actually got an email this morning. I showed it to Michael. The guy's like, I have no money. I have literally no money, and I need to make $5,000 this week. I'm like, bro, why don't you not have a job, right? You should have a job, then door knocking on the side. Okay, so I've got my little recipe here. We could talk more and more. Before we wrap up this very long video, okay, how many doors would I have to knock to get my first deal if I'm brand new, I have no experience, I have no idea what I'm doing on comping properties or anything else? What bet would you take? If my bet was, Michael, I'm brand new, I bet you this door knocking thing doesn't work. In fact, I'll bet you $1,000. How many doors do you want me to knock in order for me to prove that this doesn't work? And I will give you $1,000. What bet would you take?
If you come at each door with a servant's attitude and you really care about that seller, I would say within 100 doors you should have a deal.
I love that. Okay. So here's what I would do, guys. If you're brand new, this is your homework. I would make a sheet and I would draw these little houses on it. I would draw 100 houses on it. Okay. And you could do this in Microsoft Word. You could go, AI could do this for you on your computer. Tell AI to put 100 houses on one sheet of paper, okay, just a little emblem, and what I want you to do is just like 75 hard. You knock the house off, and you go, okay, I've knocked this house 3 times, I've knocked this house 3 times, knocked that house 3 times, and go all the way through 100 houses. I have never, in my life seen somebody get to 100 houses that came with a servant's heart, went to serve, and did not get a deal. I've never seen it.
No, you're going to get a deal, guys. You just got to take the action.
So where am I going to find my pre-foreclosure information, Michael?
So the first thing you have to do, and we talked about this in the last video, was the first step is finding that data. Now, we had mentioned the first one, USA legal notices. This applies to all 50 states. No matter where you live, you don't have an excuse. Log on here, click your state, put a few keywords in, pre-foreclosure, trustee sale, anything like that, and you'll immediately have the notices, and those update daily.
Okay, cool. And that costs so much money though, right?
Costs absolutely nothing.
$0. Okay, so $0 equals 0 excuses. Love that. All right, what about auction.com?
Okay,
why would I go to auction.com over the first one?
Auction.com is a platform that has a significant amount of the pre-foreclosure listings in the country. You can simply go on there, put your market in, Kansas City for me, Phoenix for Pace, and it'll bring up all the different listings. It'll have all the information in terms of the address, when that auction is, maybe some of the opening bids, things like that. And the cool thing is, if you want even better information, there is a little tab below that says contact information, and it will have the foreclosure attorney contact information. Go find the websites of those people, and they have even more updated listings for all their foreclosure sales.
Are you reaching out to the foreclosure attorney?
No, not reaching out to the foreclosure attorney. I'm more interested in talking to the seller.
Okay, got it. When somebody asked us today, we put you and I were going back and forth inside the Subto community Facebook group, and somebody was like, do I need a pre-foreclosure attorney? I was like, I've never needed a pre-foreclosure attorney. Have you?
I communicate with them when I'm trying to stop a sale, but not in terms of getting a hold of the seller.
Okay, yeah, all right, cool. We're on the same page there. Okay, so I don't need the foreclosure attorney. You're just going to the foreclosure attorney's website to potentially get more information. What you're telling me is auction.com is better than USA Legal Notices, not because USA Legal Notices is missing the listings, it's that auction.com is giving you way more information about that specific house.
So legal notices, it's more static. It's just telling you, hey, there's a foreclosure sale, end of conversation. So that way you get the information. Auction.com may have more updated information.
Got it, okay. Why would I go to Zillow.com versus auction.com?
So Zillow is just near and dear to my heart. That's how I found my first pre-foreclosure. I looked up Zillow. If you go to the for sale by owner, or there's a different tab that's not just traditional houses, it will have a whole list of all the pre-foreclosures. It even has a map for you so you know where it is. But it gives you all that information. Oftentimes it links back to sites like auction.com.
Okay, cool. Zome, why would I go to Zome?
Zome is another one.
This is a new one for me, by the way.
Yeah, it's sort of like auction.com. It's just another brokering service that lists all these pieces of information.
Do you find that Zome has stuff that auction doesn't have and vice versa?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So it's like kind of like going to Walmart versus Target. Like, yeah, you can both get milk, but it's going to be different brands and different whatever else. So Zome's maybe a second place to check just in case there might be stuff missing on auction.com. Pre-foreclosures daily or pre-foreclosure daily. What is good and bad about that website?
So Pre-Foreclosures Daily has been a company that's been around for a long time. They will send you the information, but sometimes it's not always the most updated. So if you have a state like mine, Missouri, where the foreclosure timeline's 21 days, if their information is a couple weeks behind, it puts me in a tough spot and for sure the seller in a tough spot. So you want to get updated information up here, but these information is also accurate.
21 days is so amazing. Why is 21 days amazing for a real estate investor?
For us, it's amazing because the seller has to take action in that period of time. Do they work with us every time? No. But they have that timeline that forces them to take action, and it makes it easy for us to scoop up deals.
Arizona's closer to 40, 60 days. California's like 16 years, I think is what it is. I'm not quite sure. You can like have a child and like they can get all the way to their driver's license before the house gets foreclosed on. So when you're focusing on pre-foreclosures, areas with that type of regulation, Texas is also really good. They only have one auction. They have an auction once a month. I think it's like the second or third Tuesday of the month. But man, they are hostile. They're like, you're getting the heck out of the house. Their time frame, 21 days is the shortest I've ever heard.
It's short.
Today we're going to talk about what it takes in terms of numbers, KPIs, when door knocking or reaching out to foreclosures, specifically, not foreclosures. Some people get confused by that. let's just say pre-foreclosures, people that have not been foreclosed on yet. Michael, what's up, dog?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. KPIs, what the hell does KPI mean?
Key performance indicators. It's the different metrics in your business that you really need to track to make sure you're hitting your target.
Okay, so trackables, right? So you want to say, I'm going on a 500 mile road trip. That means I need to hit 50 miles. I have to be there in 10 hours. That means I have to do 50 miles every hour to hit my target. Okay, that's a KPI, a measurable, a key performance indicator. So if after 2 hours I've only gone 30 miles, we got a problem. Houston, we got a problem. So in order for us to know whether I'm on track or off track in my door knocking pre-foreclosure business, we got to have some measurables. So let's ask the first question I think most people are going to ask is how many doors, how many actual doors do I need to knock to get my first deal? And is that really kind of a hard question to actually answer?
It is. I mean, every single person's going to have a different result depending on their skill level and the amount of experience they have elsewhere. For example, my first deal happened on the first door knock, but that is not realistic. So,
well, you also had been doing deals, you kind of understood real estate, you could talk somewhat intelligently about real estate, and you knew whether the house was a deal or not when you first talked to them. So when you say skills elsewhere, what if you're already a salesperson knocking doors on a solar team or like a pest control team? Michael was a freaking school teacher, dude. Like, he did take a couple of years to get to that point before he knocked his first door, but he did get his first deal on his first door. It's not really the way it's always going to happen.
No, it's not.
Okay, so let's talk about, I'm a newbie. What is a good expectation? Because you have a lot of people on your team, and people have come on your team, off your team, off your team, on your team, all of the things. How many doors should I plan on knocking before I complain that I haven't gotten a deal?
Go out there and do 100 knocks at least before you complain about it. Over that time, you're going to see a lot of interesting stuff. Maybe you get shut down at a door, but then you learn some things about that property or have conversations with others. You have that confidence now. You come back to that first door, and maybe you close it then. Okay,
cool. So your rule of thumb is 100 doors before I can complain that I haven't gotten a deal.
Yes.
Have you seen people start complaining after like 10 doors?
Oh yeah, I get people in my DMs that are like, dude, I knocked 3 doors, no one answered, I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm just like, bro.
Or they'll say, am I doing something wrong?
Exactly. Guys, that's not even enough time to figure out who you are at a door and be comfortable.
Yeah. Okay, 100 doors. And in previous videos, if you guys are watching this video right now, go back to previous videos. This is actually part 4 in a multi-part series. We'll probably do 10 videos today, 10 more videos in Taylor Swift and Kelsey's living room over in Kansas City where he lives. 100 doors, 3 times is what Michael Franke has talked about. Why 3 times?
Guys, you don't know when these people are going to be home. They could be at work, they could be taking their kids to practice or something. You have to hit them at different times. So don't expect that you go to a house one time and you're going to contact that person. There's got to be some diligence there.
Cool. And guys, remember, Michael Franke, when I started my YouTube channel, we weren't door knocking anymore. I started my YouTube channel in 2020. We turned off our door knocking team after COVID hit. And so I never really documented any of our live stuff. I miss it. Oh my gosh, one of my door knockers texted me yesterday and goes, hey, I own a window cleaning company. Can I clean your windows? I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. You own your own business. That's really freaking cool. It's fun to be able to see it. But guess what you won't be able to see on my channel? Live door knocking. You can see that on his channel. Michael Franke is doing that on his channel. So when you're ready to see the conversations and what it looks like, head over to his channel again. Okay, next question. Okay, how many doors for my first deal? When you go to the door, we've talked about this in previous video, your goal primarily is either to set up a second appointment or some sort of follow-up, right?
Yes.
How many appointments or how many in-person appointments do you need in order to get an actual contract?
So once you have that trust to get in the living room and set an appointment, usually the close rate, as long as you have a reasonable amount of skill, is pretty high. For example, my closing rate's about 40 to 50% once I'm in the living room. Yeah.
Okay, so the way it works is here. Ooh, here's a KPI I didn't ask about the doors. If you go knock 100 doors, how many conversations would you expect to have?
I would say if I knocked 10 doors, I would probably have 2 to 3 conversations.
Okay, cool. So 100 doors, I'm gonna have 20 to 30 conversations. Yep. Love that. And out of those 20 to 30 conversations, how many of those am I turning into an appointment?
So obviously you're going to have to follow up with these people through different mediums, set up a different time to talk. But in terms of an actual appointment to talk about the situation, I would say 25% of those.
Okay, so you talk to 20 people, let's say hypothetically in the lower end. 25% of those people are 5 people.
Yep.
Okay, so you're actually setting up a second appointment with 5 out of 100 doors you knock.
Correct.
And you then are going and contracting 40% of those,
right?
Which would be 2 deals.
2 deals.
Okay, so you're saying kind of an average number. You're probably at your level. If I said, Michael, if you don't get 5 deals out of these 100 doors, your heart's going to explode. You would go figure out how to get those 5.
Of course.
You, Michael
Yes.
Frankie.
Yeah, for me, it takes about 20 to 25 doors to get a deal. But
Okay, cool. So a normal average person that's just kind of getting started, you could expect 2 deals out of 5 appointments. Those 5 appointments come from 20 conversations that you've had after knocking 100 doors.
Exactly. And let's say we even had a lower closing rate. Maybe that's a little aggressive. 20% close rate. That still gets you a deal out of 100 knocks.
There you go. Now, one thing that I would suggest you guys do, if you guys are inside of our community, the Subto community, I would suggest going with a closer to your appointments so that you actually have somebody a little bit more versed. Michael actually teaches this stuff. You guys will get his scripts and how to close in the living room. One of the most addictive feelings of all time, by the way. Okay, so I'm getting, let's say 100 doors. I'm getting 1 deal, hypothetically. Let's say that I can knock 100 doors every 30 days. Okay? That means I'm getting 1 deal every 30 days. Do I get any more deals out of the, let's say the 80 people that did not get an appointment with? Do I get any more appointments or deals with those people from my long-term follow-up?
Oh, absolutely. And door knocking is just one avenue that we can go down. I mean, you have SMS, you have cold calling, Facebook messages, email, different ways that you can get a hold of these people. The people that you don't get a hold of are the people that you want to follow up in different ways.
Okay, cool. And that's actually going to be the next video we talk about is what are all the ways that Michael and his team goes through and communicates with these people, reaches out to them, et cetera, and kind of what are the importance and what's the chronological, like, am I knocking doors first? Am I going to Facebook Messenger first? We'll talk about that in the next video. But what I think you're saying is out of the 100 doors that you knock, you're going to get 1 deal. But out of the 80 doors that you're following up with SMS, Facebook Messenger, other things, maybe direct mail, whatever it is, you're probably looking at another deal out of those ones as well, right?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so baseline foundational, you're brand new, you reach out to 100 people, 20 conversations come from door knocking, 5 appointments come from door knocking, 1 contract comes from door knocking. What Michael's saying is there's the other people I couldn't get a hold of through door knocking, so I'm going to text them, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, right? Whatever it may be, and I'm getting another deal out of those other 80 that same way. Now the next question I want to ask, I've got 2 deals that month because I reached out to 100 people and I did follow up in multiple ways. What's my average assignment fee or profit on each one of those deals?
Sure. Out of the 300 plus pre-foreclosure deals that I've done, they average right around 25K.
25K. Now, is that assignment or wholesale or combination?
Combination. A lot of mine are wholesales these days. I'll take them down, put them on the market, try to get a little bit bigger spread. But if you're new and don't want to do that, you obviously have to find some really good buyers that can close on a tight timeline, but a $25,000 assignment fee is reasonable.
Have you done a video on your YouTube channel about what a hotel deal is?
Nothing that granular.
Austin, come on, bro. Guys, in the comments, tell Austin and Eric, make sure we get a hotel deal YouTube breakdown and have Michael break down one of his recent hotel deals in probably the last year. $25,000. So you're telling me that I have the possibility, if I go 30, 60 days knocking 100 doors, I have the possibility of making probably around $50,000 on just this strategy.
Guys, it's life-changing. I was a teacher before that. I had to work an entire year for less than that amount. And you can go out here and put this strategy into place, make more than that in a month.
Your first door knocking deal, I know you'd done deals before that, but your first pre-foreclosure deal was a door knock.
It was.
And you took home $60,000.
That one was a $50,000 assignment. Yep.
That's right. Let's say that I've got 2 contracts. A couple of questions I want to ask now is I've got 2 contracts. Let's say I go 3 months of stacking my escrows and I've got 6 deals under contract, all kind of simultaneous. How many of these 6 contracts would you say fall out of contract?
So I would say probably 1 to 2 out of 10 would fall out. And usually that's for reasons such as they underestimate how much they owe on the house. It ends up being crazy expensive. Maybe the arrears are so high that maybe you can't even take it down Subto. Maybe there's some other title issue that's beyond our control.
So escrow problems, you pull title. Title pops up. I just had one pop up the other day on a fix and flip we were buying here locally. We found out there was a workman's comp lawsuit against the owner. He owned a business and he never paid his workman's comp, and workman's comp sued him. He has a second lien in second position. It's like $280,000. And the seller's like, I had no idea that was there. Of course you didn't, because you didn't get all the notices and you didn't fight workman's comp. You didn't know any of this stuff was there. You'll run into that. That does happen. That has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with the seller trying to cancel on you. So those of you guys that have fear of a seller trying to cancel on you, Michael's saying it's mostly escrow problems that you're running into, probably 90% of the time, right?
Yeah, if you set the stage the right way, develop that relationship, and you're that trusted advisor character, they're not canceling on you most of the time.
Okay, cool. What are other KPIs that we need to talk about today to make sure that everybody walks away going, I know my KPIs?
So in terms of door knocking, some key KPIs that you can keep track of. 100 doors, 3 times to get a contract. Generally, you'll get 20 conversations out of that. 4 or 5 appointments come from those conversations, and then a deal after that. Usually you can average around 25 grand a deal.
Perfect. I love it. Michael, how am I reaching out to these people, and what's my first one I should do? That's what we should do. Should we do significance of importance, likelihood of getting a deal, or I don't know. I think maybe the first one we should do is probably the first. If I gave you a list right now, pre-foreclosures, what are you doing first?
It would either be a door knock or a cold call, but before we even get into that, why even contact people in this amount of different ways? If you've ever watched Alex Hormozi's channel, do you watch his stuff?
Of course.
Okay. He had an interesting stat in one of his podcasts about everyone consumes content differently. He put his books out in a physical form, a Kindle, an audio book, and a course. And he found that about 25% of people consumed it in each different one of those. So the same thing applies to all of these different things, different ways that we reach out. Why would we ever just stop with the door knock? Maybe someone doesn't want to answer the door. SMS, well, people are getting blown up. Maybe their phone's out of commission. Who knows? Facebook Messenger, everyone's there. Okay, so we've just got to contact people in a lot of different ways until it's the medium that they like.
What a wonderful answer. What a wonderful answer. I've been lucky to be friends with Alex Hormozi, so I'll send him voice memos and all sorts of really cool things. We primarily talk about building community, which is really amazing. I have never heard him say this, but it is very true. When I released Wealth Without Cash, that book over there, the first thing I got was a message of, when's it coming out on Audible? I'm like, just read the book. And they're like, nope, I'll wait for Audible.
Right.
Does that mean my book sucks?
Absolutely not.
Probably. Who knows? But I can tell you that's a really good answer. It doesn't mean, now in the beginning, nobody was there teaching you this stuff.
No,
Did you feel like you just sucked?
No, I mean, just over time I realized, hey, I got shut down at door knock. There's got to be another way to communicate with these people. And then over time I added these. It wasn't overnight, it was over several years.
And more importantly, you're sitting there checking your heart at the door.
It was.
Knocking at the house going, these people are going to lose their house in 2 days.
Yeah.
3 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is. It's my duty, my responsibility to reach out to them in all ways I possibly can.
That's the exact word I feel. It's my duty to make sure that they're okay. Whether I buy the house or they solve the situation on their own, I want to be an asset for them.
Oh my gosh. What if you just looked at all the pins on all the foreclosures in your city and you said, I'm responsible for making sure all of these people get whatever solution they need, whether it's an agent, whether it's a loan modification, a refinance. Well, they're not getting a refinance in a pre-foreclosure situation, but maybe it's selling their house to a cash buyer through me. Got to make a wholesale deal, a Subto or seller finance deal, or maybe a novation. You partner with the seller on one of those things. So you look at that map and you're looking at all these pins that pop up and you go, I have to be responsible. I have to reach out to every one of them as much as I possibly can until they have a solution. That's what we're doing here. So door knocking, you find, is the most effective?
Door knocking and cold calling are the most effective. I like door knocking the most just because of the amount of intel you can get. So you can have a conversation with the seller. You can see the condition of the house. You can see if it's vacant, and we can talk about vacancy and how to find those deals in another video. That's where the fun begins. You can go talk to the neighbors. There's just all kinds of information you can get from a door knock that maybe you couldn't get from a text or a cold call.
Okay, so you door knock or you cold call. I don't think the audience wants to hear or.
Okay.
So what is Michael Frankie doing? Door knocking first or cold calling first?
If you're a solopreneur, it's going to be more scalable to cold call. You're going to be able to talk to more people, or choose door knocking. I have a multiple person team, so I can do all of these different things, but choose one. They all work. Every single one of them will get deals for you.
Okay. Michael is telling you go door knock if you're maybe driving on the way home from work, but it's easier just to be at your home, less windshield time. Here's the problem. Door knocking is very effective, and I think what people will do is they'll choose to cold call for 2 or 3 days. Remember we talked about in video number 2, which was the hardest thing about all of this is that it's hard. And you're going to convince yourself not to do it. And if you are questioning yourself whether I'm doing my KPIs right or I'm doing enough stuff and I'm calling enough people, and you quit on day number 3, well, you have to blame yourself. We've already told you it's going to be really, really hard. So door knock and cold calling. Now, when I'm sending them an SMS, when do I know it's time to send an SMS?
So we have it set up in our system to automatically go, but you don't want to just overload people from the very beginning. Let's just say you door knock someone and you cold called them and they didn't answer. Well, it becomes maybe perhaps a little intrusive to send a text. I'm thinking a few days after that pre-foreclosure piece of data comes out, and that message that you're sending is pretty simple. Don't overthink it. It's sort of like the door knock. Hey, my name is Michael.
Go Chiefs.
That's right. In Kansas City, that may get me an appointment right now. I don't know.
I mean, literally, what if you only send a text right now, right after the Super Bowl, you guys just won, you just said, yo. Literally, you wrote, yo, go Chiefs. Am I right? And then nothing else. Are you getting responses?
You probably could. I probably should get a jersey and go door knock with that.
Oh my gosh. Guys, be creative. Do this fun stuff. So what does your text say?
So my text would say something like, hey, my name's Michael. I know you got a lot of going on and you have a lot of people contacting you. I'm sorry about what the lender's doing with the foreclosure. I just wanted to see if there was anything I could do to help. You obviously don't have to have the exact message every single time. I could say it 1,000 different ways. Your goal is to send that message. If that person is your client, they at some point will respond.
And what I love about this is that not one time did you say, I want to buy your house.
No. I never talk about buying the house. Guys, you have to realize these people are going through the toughest time in their life. There's some sort of catalyst that has caused this issue. And will they sell their house at some point? Maybe. But at first, they're going to think about other options that they can use to save that home. And our job is to guide them through those, and eventually you'll buy a house.
Michael, what are those options? Well, we'll talk about those in another video. Michael has 5 options that he really likes to condense and give to the seller. Okay, does Facebook Messenger really work, Michael?
Facebook Messenger gets me a little hot and bothered.
Why?
Right?
Tell me.
So I had the deal that I always like to talk about. I had contacted this lady. I went back and figured out how many times I'd contacted her through all these different options here. I'd contacted her 116 times. So when we're talking about persistence, does it always take that many times? Absolutely not. But if you really want a deal, sometimes you're going to have to go to those lengths. So after 116 times, I was like, man, I'm just not going to get this deal. But it was in my hometown. I wanted it. You know, hey, you have that feeling inside. It's just like, I want this one so bad. So I was like, I'm going to try it one more time. I went back to her Facebook profile. I saw that she had a link to her boyfriend on there. I went to the boyfriend. I said, look, your girlfriend has a ton of equity in this house. I've been trying to reach out to her. I'd like to help her out, but she won't respond. He immediately says, I'll see what I can do. She calls me about 3 minutes later, followed by a picture of her mortgage statement, and then it leads to an appointment that night. The reason she hadn't responded to any of my messages, unfortunately her son had passed away in the house, and that was the catalyst. She couldn't face that. Then at the appointment, she's just going through that whole situation. And of course, I'm showing as much empathy as I can. And at the end of that conversation, she just says, look, I owe $68 on this house. I know you won't even pay that. But if you could pay $80 for the house, I would be just so elated. That would change my life. Because this house is worth $300,000 fixed up. Okay, so it's worth a lot. And I said, look, I can't do 80. She kind of looks down a little bit. And I said, I can do 100 for the house. Okay?
Wow, bro.
So
yes.
we're out here to, of course, make money as real estate investors. We got to provide for our family. But if you can make life-changing money for these sellers, that's a huge win in itself. Okay, so she went ahead and netted, what, 32 grand? I assigned that for 75K.
Wow. Bro, give this man some love in the comments.
Facebook Messenger, man.
Facebook Messenger. You know, I have used Facebook Messenger one time to get a deal done. I already had the house under contract. And we go escrow, so the seller's name is Desiree. We pull title, we find $110,000 lien on a house that I had under contract for $110,000. The seller thought the house was not encumbered. She had a child support lien. Here's what happened. She inherited the property from somebody who inherited the property from somebody, and they had a quit claim deed it all the way through. There was a child support lien from 2 owners prior.
Wow.
How did I find the guy that had the lien? Facebook Messenger.
Love it.
I found out he was a barber, is what he did. He told me, stay the F away from me. I want to have nothing to do with that house. There's bad memories there, da-da-da-da. I reached out to him on Facebook Messenger. He said all of those things. So what did I do? You know what I did? I booked an appointment to get my hair cut by the guy. And I sat in his desk. If you guys ever meet Desiree, she's come on a couple of our community Zooms. And I went and sat down with the guy and I said, hey, here's the situation. This guy's got a straight razor in his freaking hand. And I said, you owe, your child support lien that you owe is $110,000. I need to get off the house. Can you please introduce me to your baby mama so I can go and work this $110,000 lien and see if she'll reduce that dollar amount. That baby mama, how much do you think she did? She took off, I gave her money to remove the $110,000 lien. How much money do you think she took?
I don't know.
$1,000. She took $1,000. She was like, this guy's a deadbeat. He's never going to pay me. That lien's been on there for 7 years. I go, what would you take? She's like, $1,000. I go, done. That came from Facebook Messenger. We could not get a hold of that guy any other way. I freaking love that story with your girl. And man, I think that it's a really, I wouldn't say the death of a son is a common thing, but I think that significance of a level of problems is very common in foreclosures.
Very common.
Okay, so email. You are doing email?
Yeah, guys, you can actually set these up on a drip. The second your information comes into the system, have 5-10 different emails that you can send out to these people. It automatically sends out, and all you have to do is wait for a response. I probably close a deal or two every couple months from email, but I don't have to work for it. And then you set up an appointment and contract the deal.
You guys want to learn what he writes in his emails? Go over to his YouTube channel, subscribe to him. He'll have some stuff come out about that type. I'm not going to talk about emails on this channel. He can talk about emails on that channel, and he'll help you guys out on that. Okay, a couple of other ones. Ooh, we got a couple of really good ones. We've already talked about cold call, so we'll cross that out. Direct mail and video message. When do I spend the money on direct mail?
So direct mail wouldn't be the first thing that I would say that a new person should get into. There's other ways that are cheaper and perhaps faster. But if you're wanting to add in another source that maybe gives you a little bit of credibility, direct mail is a good source. And oftentimes people might look at your direct mail piece and they'll say, hey, let me look this guy up. Then they might look you up and see your Google reviews that have glowing reviews about all the other people you helped. Then maybe they'll give you a call or something. So it's sometimes these direct mail pieces, they just aid in the credibility of you getting a deal.
You know, it was interesting when I was with HomeVestor, shout out to Carl Bassett. You guys, Carl Bassett, you stole one of his acquisition people. We owe you a knuckle sandwich for that, bro. It was interesting when we were running our HomeVestors campaigns, we were spending about $400,000 a month in marketing for the total franchise. That's all 20 locations in all of Phoenix. The average person was spending 20 grand a month. We would spend $65,000 a month on billboards, and we got 0 calls from billboards. Never got calls from billboards. Nobody ever calls on billboards. But why did we continue to spend the money?
The credibility, the visibility.
Oh, so good. And now what happened is our open rate on our direct mail went up a full percentage because people see our billboard on their drive home. They see a stack of, you know, postcards, mailers, business cards stuck in their door. But because they see our yellow letter that matches the yellow color of the billboard that they just subliminally got programmed in their brain, our letter gets opened first. And so our direct mail was more successful because of that. So same thing here. Michael's saying that your direct mail makes it so you're cold calling, or your business card you leave on the door, or a sticky note, or whatever else. There's credibility, there's recognition, etc. Plus, when you are cold calling, you can, and you know you're sending direct mail, a lot of times your team, on Michael's team, will go, hey, we sent you a letter a couple of weeks ago, did you have a chance to get it? And they'll actually, there's a point of conversation there rather than like, hi, it's Tammy from Michael's team, just wondering how's it going? Sometimes it's like, hey, we sent you a piece of letter, just want to see if you got it, if you saw the options that we're giving. It's good conversation piece on top of the credibility, which I like. Video message. Bro, this is gangster.
Video messages are great because everyone else is texting, they're door knocking, maybe direct mail, email. How do you stand out? Okay? A lot of people get a text, they throw that away because everyone else, it looks exactly the same. But if I just take my phone, do a quick 30-second video and just say, hey, my name is Michael. I know you have a lot going on, and I know a lot of people are bothering you, but I just wanted to reach out, put a name to a face, and just say, I can help you with your situation, and I'm just here if you need me. So it doesn't matter what you say, but just try to have some feeling behind your voice, and all of a sudden, instead of just a text or a piece of direct mail or a Facebook message, they really see your face. And then you can connect at a higher level. I don't know how many deals I've gotten, people said, you know, I got reached out to by a lot of other people, but you were the only one that sent me a video message, and that's why I went with you.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's something I've done at a lot of homes when I'm knocking, but I could never get my team to do that. They're always like trying to go through their numbers. They had KPIs we would measure them on. But for me, when I was showing other people how to door knock in the very beginning, I go, look guys, look how easy it is. I'm at the door, right? The door's right behind me. The house that we're talking about is right behind me. I can show them, hey, I was here. If you see me again, come and knock. Just so you know, I'll probably come back a couple more times just to check in on you. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not a this. And by the way, if you just need a recommendation of not an attorney, a real estate agent, a contractor, somebody to help you out with this, I'm happy to just give you referrals. Tell me what you need. I'm here. Dude, like, so freaking genius, guys. Oh my gosh. So, can I do this with an Android? That's the main question.
Well, I suppose you can, but I don't like green bubbles.
Guys, get rid of the green bubbles, okay? What are your foreclosure sellers going to think when the person who is trying to save them from foreclosure doesn't even have the money to buy a quality phone? Come on, get out of here with these Androids. Austin, you don't have an Android, do you?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So video messages, these are like 30 seconds, you're saying?
Yes.
When should I send these? On the first time I door knock, or maybe I've never gotten a hold of them, or is this like right away, you've knocked the door, I send them a text message?
So Guy, the cool thing is we could set up a really rigid schedule for all these things, but they're all interchangeable. Maybe I go door knock a house, and I didn't get a hold of them. And it's like, oh, it's top of mind. I skip traced it from before. We talked about that in a past video. Hey, I'm just going to shoot a message while I'm here. It's top of mind. This situation is here, and send them a message. But obviously, we could come up with a really detailed plan depending on your market and how the foreclosure schedule works.
Yeah, I think when you're just getting started out, he's saying top of mind. So you're on the doorstop or you're on the patio. I think a smart thing to do, which is what he's saying, is like if you're in the moment, just send a video and go, hey, I'm here at your door. I'm going to come back probably in a couple of days, different time. I'm just trying to catch you. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. I just want to help you. And if you see me come and knock the door, just so you know, I'm a friendly guy, putting a name to the face, da, 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 da. I think that's cool. They might not reply to it, but I think that's a smart move to go on almost every time you knock somebody's door. Is there a point where you could go overkill in the communication?
I don't think so. I mean, the amount of times that I have had someone that I signed a contract and they say, I saw all your messages.
Oh.
I just wasn't ready yet.
Yeah.
I actually appreciate you reaching out. Everyone else quit.
Yeah, I had one of our community members was texting me. Actually, shout out David Richter. Do you know who David Richter is?
I know the name.
He wrote the book Profit First, for
yes.
real estate investors. And so he texted me this morning for the fourth time this week. And he says, hey, no, you're busy, just pinging you. I'm like, bro, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I was in Yuma, I was in Tucson, I was entertaining a bunch of people. I had people flying in and out. My phone is constantly like over here to the side where we're filming. He's like, no, I know you're busy. That's why I kept pinging you. And I also know that doesn't bother people that are busy like you. So I freaking love that. You've had sellers tell you straight up, I saw all your messages.
Straight up. Guys, they appreciate it. At the end, they don't have any other options, and they're going to go with the person that they recognize, they trust. If you're doing all these different options, All they remember is Michael, 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 Michael. And who's at the top of mind when it's time to make a decision?
Michael.
Michael.
Michael D. Frankie. Head over to his YouTube channel, Michael D. Frankie. D for door knock, just so you guys know. Now, what I also love as we wrap up for this, I love that the seller sees all of those messages, but guess what else he sees? He sees how consistent and persistent you are. What do we do if the house is vacant while we're knocking doors or reaching out to pre-foreclosures? Is that a bad thing?
No, that's when the game begins. I get really excited when you have a vacant house. Guys, think about it. You're out door knocking, which we've talked about in other videos. All of a sudden, you're kind of looking in the windows, and there's no furniture in there. Maybe there's just a mess, and there's no one there. That's when the excitement starts.
Well, hold on. Michael Frankie, by the way, has his own YouTube channel, Michael D. Frankie. D is for door knocking. This dude's the most gangster door knocker and pre-foreclosure expert in the country. He is the best of the best. He's hanging out with us today on Pace Morby's YouTube channel today. I look at a vacant house and I'm like, if I'm a new person, I look at that and I go, there's no decision maker for me to talk to.
Right.
That's not a deal.
So the reality is that there's something that has happened to make that house vacant. Over the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals of these that I've done, the common link is one, death, or some really significant situation in their life to where they can't even imagine being in that house anymore.
You mentioned in a previous story, a homeowner who you made $75,000 on an assignment. She made a good amount of money too. She didn't even want to go to the house for the appointment because her child had passed away in the house.
Yeah, people are experiencing these really difficult situations, and then it leaves the property vacant. What does that mean for us? That means that there's detachment from the property. That means that there's no one living in the property, perhaps they don't care, or people that don't understand the foreclosure process at all. Maybe they think, oh, I'm behind on my payments. I already lost my home.
Oh my gosh, that does happen. Because they're getting a notice. And we're going to talk about this in the next video, actually. Like, when do they get the notice? What does this look like? What's actually happening in the foreclosure process? These people that are going through this, it's the only house they've ever bought in their life. They're not real estate professionals like Michael or like me, and they understand that that's just a warning. That's just a thing. They might be moving out saying, oh, we lost the house.
Yes. So what do we do when there's a vacant house? Okay. The first thing you want to do, let's say you go door knocking, you establish that it's vacant. The average investor is going to say, oh, that's cool. Maybe they'll write a note on their pad or put it in their CRM, but then they don't take any action after that. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do when we find a vacant property, and it's a little bit morbid, but we want to get deals. We want to serve these homeowners or heirs. Okay. So we're going to look up, is there an obituary for the homeowner? Did they pass away? Okay, so we're gonna get on, type in whatever your market is. Let's say it's
Kansas City.
Kansas City. Okay, well, we'll type in Michael Frankie obituary, Kansas City. All right, you'll find an obituary link for that person if they've passed away. Guess what's in that obituary? What do you think's in there, Pace?
Their spouse's name, family names, heirs, like their children. They have survived these 5 children. Owner, they might even say something like he was the owner of State Farm Insurance Agency down the road. They might say a bunch of things. They're basically telling you where all the gold is sitting.
Yes. So they're telling you husband passed away, wife passed away, here's all of the children. Those are the heirs to the property. Maybe they don't understand that they have a right to this property, there's a bunch of equity, and that them and their brothers and sisters could get some money for the deal.
Amazing. So then what do? Do I go knock on their doors?
Okay. You could get there. So first thing you want to do is you want to take that information. A lot of times in those obituaries, they'll actually say where that person is from. So maybe if you're in Colorado, the house is in Denver. Maybe the heir lives in Colorado Springs. Okay, so you can skip trace that homeowner or any of the different heirs and then give them a call.
Wow. What I love about a vacant house is what Michael said earlier. He said it's a disconnected homeowner. The person who is going to be the decision maker that you're going to write a contract with physically does not live in the property, therefore has no emotional attachment to the house. In fact, they're probably rejecting in their mind, I don't want to go back to that house, I don't want to have anything to do with it. People that are inheritance or the heirs of a probate situation, a lot of times, my first probate deal that I ever did directly with an attorney, The guy's like, I inherited the house. I'm in Pennsylvania, the house in Arizona. I don't want to go to it. Whatever's in the house, just keep it. Here's the number I want. I was like, wow, that's it? That's all you're going to do?
That's often how these heirs are, or the people that are selling the house.
They obviously can't afford the payment.
Yeah, they're done with this house. They don't think that there's any financial gain to be had. And if you tell them, hey, look, I can help you with X, Y, and Z, and you can end up with this much in their pocket, they're blown away.
Why wouldn't they just renovate their house themselves, Michael?
Who knows why they wouldn't do that? We can run through our head and try to figure out why they're not doing something. But like I've said before, there was usually when they're vacant, there's a death in the family or there's something traumatic. They don't want anything to do with the house anymore. Or they're an heir. Maybe they think they can't afford probate or don't know how to do probate. Maybe they just think, nah, I'm just done. And that's kind of the word that we can probably put with this type of situation is the seller's just done with the house.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of new investors like Michael does all the time, every day. Michael's a great leader in our community and also just in the industry in general. So you talk to a lot of people who have never done a deal before, and their thought is like, wait, I'm desperately trying to buy this house. Why would somebody be desperately trying to get rid of it? You ever had a friend, a girlfriend, or a business partner that you're just like, I am done. I just want to be done with this relationship. This girl is a lunatic. Get me away from this person. That's how a lot of times these homeowner feels about the house. They're like, I don't even care. I don't care that there's any money there. I don't care that there's a potential future there. I want to have nothing to do with it. That happens a lot of times. The other stuff I see too is that somebody that looks at that house and go, yeah, it could be worth some money, but I don't have the money to catch up the payments that my parents were behind on, or I don't have the money to renovate the house to put it into a condition that a real estate agent would actually accept the listing. I don't have that money because they don't know how to raise money like Michael does and like I do. They're not going to go out and just go raise money from a private investor and say, hey, help me renovate this house so I can make more money. It's appealing to them when Michael reaches out and just says, hey, I can help you take care of this house.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's less competition or more competition on a vacant house?
So a lot of what I've found is investors will find a vacant house and then they do nothing.
Thank goodness there's no competition.
So that's why I like these houses. I see money and opportunity and the ability to serve a seller that no one else is going to help.
They just quit.
They quit. Okay, so we talked about the obituary. That's level 1. Okay,
we're going deeper on this?
Here's some ninja sauce for you. Let's say you're on an obituary. You've looked at them, right? Not very often, hopefully.
I'm afraid.
Okay, at the bottom there's a comment section. Everyone.
You're lying.
I'm not lying. Okay, and who's the owner of that particular account? One of the heirs. You can simply write a comment on the bottom and say, hey, look, I'm sorry for your loss. I'd like to speak with someone with the family. Put your contact information. I have gotten so many deals from just doing that little thing. They reach out.
Okay, so a good script is not, hey, saw that person died, I want to buy the house?
No. You have to be sensitive just like you are in every other situation. Okay? And then, if you want to take that to another level, we're trying to give a lot to you guys here.
I did not know. This is ninja sauce, dude.
Okay? Every one of those obituaries says where that person was buried. Whatever cemetery. You can call that cemetery up and you simply say something like this. Hey, my name's Michael. This is going to be the weirdest thing you've ever been asked for. There was a guy, William Doe, that died 3 years ago and was buried at your place. Well, his house is in foreclosure. This is really weird. Okay? But I'm just trying to get a hold of the family. I can't get a hold of them. There's so much equity for them. I know that you're probably not going to give me their contact information, but would you pass it forward for me?
Oh my gosh, what a great psychological line right there where you just said, I know you're probably not going to give me their number.
Yeah. So what do? They either give me the number or they pass it through. And then out of sheer curiosity, why this funeral home reached out, they're going to respond and I get deals from that regularly.
Wow, that's some ninja. You should make some sauce, bro. Some Kansas City barbecue sauce called ninja sauce.
Ninja sauce.
Why has somebody not come up with ninja sauce as an actual flavor? I love it.
That's cool.
Are there any more layers to this?
Okay, so let's say you're done through the obituary. You've put all of that information in your CRM. You're trying to get a hold of these heirs. You're unsuccessful. Okay, what do you do next? Someone's passed away. Well, they need to go through probate, right? This is a topic for perhaps another time, going deep into probate, but you can go into your county records, look and see if that homeowner has an active probate record. Okay? What's in those probate records? Hey, the name of the deceased, the name of the heir, and guess what? A lot of times it'll have an address for that heir, a phone number for that heir, or an attorney that's representing them that you can get a hold of. So just gives you some more opportunity to get a hold of these folks.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is so great. So vacant houses are like the gold mine, whereas other people will just straight up quit. What does the process of a foreclosure look like? Where are the deals typically getting done in this timeline? What is the mindset of the seller while they're going through these steps in the process? How sellers in the beginning are different than the sellers at the end? And Michael Franke is here to hang out with me. Thanks, bro.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Okay, walk me through this.
Okay, so obviously pre-foreclosure means they're behind on their payments, right? So there's a timeline in each state, and generally you get about 3 months behind is when we start having lenders reach out, okay? What's it like in your state, Pace?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing for us. So let's say here we are in January. They make a payment. You guys can see this on the sheet. They made a payment in January, so they're good. They made a payment in February, so they're good. They skip a payment in March, so they're now 30 days late. They get put on a very specific list, 30-day, 60-day, and 90-day late. Those are a little bit easy. Those lists are easy to get. However, that doesn't necessarily mean the seller's going to go in pre-foreclosure. A lot of times is they just forgot to make their payment. They were going through a hard time. They had to go get a second job. They're by no means ready to sell their house. So a lot of people are reaching out on 30, 60, and 90-day late. However, there are ways that people are getting deals from that. I just think it's probably a lot less. What then happens after 90 days of no payment is they get this thing called an NOD. Michael, what's an NOD?
It's a notice of default. In most states, that's what it's called. In my state, it's called an appointment. But that's the period of time where, an appointment.
Why?
Because a lender appoints a third-party trustee to handle the foreclosure sale.
You're telling me the bank doesn't foreclose on the house?
No, trustee.
They hire somebody?
They hire a trustee to perform the sale. Okay, and in this period of time...
Wow, that's so... I learned something new today. This is why every single day I learn something new. They appoint a trustee to handle the process. We don't call it an appointment, we just call it a notice of default.
So most places would be a notice of default, but this basically says no matter what that document is called, that the lender has the intention to start the foreclosure process. This NOD period depends on the state. I don't know if you know how long yours is. In Kansas City, Missouri area, it's somewhere between a few days to about 45 days. Just depends on the funnel of that particular lender.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Every lender's a little bit different. Their agreements are a little bit different, but overall, ours is about the same time frame. Now, notice of default, where do we find the notice of default?
Okay, so for us, it's posted online. More than likely, most larger counties, metropolitan areas are going to have that online. Okay, and what is the thought process for most of these people that are in notice of default? Okay, there's always going to be a subset of people that want to take action immediately. Imagine a person that's pretty disciplined, they've lived a pretty good financial life, but something has happened. Okay, they've had a major illness, their spouse has passed away, something has happened. They know from the very beginning, I can't afford the back payments, I can't afford the payments moving forward, I need this taken care of now. And that's why it's so important to get to these notice of defaults. Are the majority of people taking action during this period of time? They're not. But the subset of people that are, the deals are ripe for the picking in that period of time.
My experience, and it's been a while since we had a door knocking team, it's been 4 years for me. You actively have a door knocking team, so you have more live touch right now. My experience was about 10 to probably 20% at a very high end of people that are like, I'm aware, I'm logical, I'm not an ostrich with my head in the sand, I know this is only going to get worse, therefore I need to solve my problem right now. Michael is talking about those people, probably 10, let's say that we have 100 people that go into the NOD process or the appointment process, 100 people, I bet you, would you say I'm about right? About 10% of those people are like, I'm ready to sell right now.
Oh, I think that's fair.
Okay.
And then another aspect of these NODs, you're going out there, let's say you door knock it. What if it's vacant? Okay, we can go back to another video that we just did about vacancy, but the earlier you get there, the likelier you're going to be the first person to get to that heir, the eventual seller. And if you can get to it early in the process, that makes it easier to assign as well.
That's amazing. So he's saying, hey, let's say you reach out to 10 people, or you reach out to 100 people, there's a vacant home. Video literally before this one in the playlist was talking about what to do with vacant homes. Now, what's happening is nobody else is going to take that extra time. You are going to be one of very few people that actually will reach out to those vacants. That's money. That's gold is what Michael is saying. Okay, cool. So about 10% of those people are ready to go right now. Awesome. You're reaching out to them like right when the NOD hits.
So for example, I did a YouTube video a few weeks back. I door knocked a guy. The NOD came out.
Okay.
I got an email from my virtual assistant that data had come out within a few minutes on the county records. It happened to be about 5 minutes away from me. I drove over there right away, door knocked the guy. He had just gotten home from work from a night shift. Guy didn't have a shirt on. It was raw, but had a great conversation with him. His wife had passed away 2 years ago. He just was shut down. Did not want to live in the house anymore. Just wanted a little bit of equity to move on. He was going to move to with family in Nebraska. We set up an appointment the next Monday, a few days from there, which I contracted the deal. So guys, I came out with a piece of data, an NOD. I went and door knocked it right away, found motivation. Was he of the 10%? Probably, but it's a $35,000 assignment.
Dude, that's amazing. Okay, great. So money, what you are saying is you're saying the money in the deal, or where you're going to want to reach out is right about here. This is like your first place you're reaching out.
That spot is money.
Okay, and 10% of these people are ready to go. Now, what's the process of the people that don't sell and they start going through this big loop and this big process of, I call this the ostrich egg. What, is that how you spell ostrich?
Looks right.
Okay, so these are ostriches putting
Eric should be able to tell us if it's spelled right.
What are they trying to accomplish in this loop right here? The people that don't sell right away, what's going on?
So let's say foreclosure sale is set right here, right after the notice of default. That first X amount of time, depending on which market you're in, that's when investors are reaching out to them, their lenders reaching out to them, they're finding out about the situation, and perhaps someone in our shoes, we're gonna go over all of the options. Generally, are you gonna contract a deal here? Probably not. But you start developing that rapport, you start getting that relationship going, that way later in the process, they're more interested in talking to you. Okay, so is there many deals in this spot? No. Not too much. What happens in this kind of middle zone? Okay, that's when the seller is generally either sticking their head in the sand, they're not acknowledging the situation at all, or perhaps they take a lot of our advice from all of the different options we have, or they're communicating with their lender. They're trying to figure out the situation.
I think what they're doing is they're watching Michael D. Frankie's YouTube channel, because D is for door knocking, and they're learning all about foreclosures and wondering, what are my options? Michael, come save me. What's also happening here is, I believe a lot of times the reason why the seller will not contract with you is, yes, they are being an ostrich, but they are also trying to solve their problem and stay in the house. So they might be doing loan mods. Do you see them all trying to work on loan mods during this time frame?
Loan mods.
What about agents? Are they working with a lot of agents during this time?
A lot of them reach out to agents and see if they can list the house.
Okay, sometimes will you ever see them do FSBOs during this time?
For sale by owners, they'll look into bankruptcy, they'll look into all types of things.
Man, we don't. Bankruptcy is like a ninja conversation inside of foreclosure. Oh my gosh, that's a whole series. Michael will put that series on his YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, so good. Bankruptcy does so many things for the seller, so they are getting reached out to actually by bankruptcy attorneys through these situations as well. They're getting hit up by a lot of people.
Oh, a lot of people. And you have to be the one that's providing the most value to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, according to Michael's script, you're really the only person that's like, hey, I just want to make sure you have all the options, you have all the solutions, and I just want to help you out, right? That's basically it. So they're trying to get loan mods, they're trying to work with agents, FSBOs, they're trying to solve the problem. Maybe they're trying to borrow money from a family member to catch up their payments. They're doing everything possible. Anything else that you can think of that they're doing besides trying to work with real estate investors?
No, this stuff is good, but this might take them several weeks, a month, depending on your timeline. It could take them a very long time. But then at the end, we're talking the last couple weeks, right? I call it the last 10-day list in my market. This is when people have They've tried to solve the problem. They've tried to get money to reinstate the loan. They've tried a loan mod and it failed because they didn't have a job. They talk to an agent and the agent says, oh, this house is trash, I'm not listing it. They've tried to sell it for sale by owner. They weren't getting any calls. Whatever the reason is, they haven't solved the situation. This is, as Pace wrote it, when reality sets in. And this is when all of your work from this period of time, when you're reaching out and you're giving value and you're connecting them with all of the different resources that you have, all of those have failed, all of a sudden the seller thinks, crap, I'm out of time. Who am I going to work with? And it's the person that has done all the things that we've talked about in all these videos. They've provided value and they're going to want to work with you in this last 10-day period of time.
Why wouldn't I just skip all of this, Michael?
The seller?
No, me. The investor. Why don't I just skip all of that and go, I'm going to try and go for the low-hanging fruit here, but then I'm also going to just skip all of the middle side and I'm just going to wait for the 10-day list?
You could, and you could get deals that way, but the reality is your relationship building right here. The seller builds trust with you. They know that you're going to keep following up with them this period of time, so they trust you here. Do I get deals here that I've never contacted the seller before? Yes, but I don't know how many of my messages from this period of time they've looked at. So that's why we do it the whole time, but yes, you could circle the drain. I call it circle the drain, where you're on that last 10-day list, you're just circling those sellers over and over. Or at the notice of default. I know we're getting kind of messy.
No, I love the messy.
The notice of default, we're circling that over and over and over. And then during this period of time, we're building relationship. That way on bookends, we can get some deals.
This is one of the most important things that I learned about the foreclosure process when I was doing it was, why could I not get deals right here? This was so hard for me. And what Michael just taught you was so important that you don't skip that part. What I did, because I didn't have Michael D. Frankie at the time, but door knocking Frankie, D. Frankie over here, he just broke it down for you. I went away from the middle of that portion when I was knocking doors myself. I'm like, I'm going to waste all of my time just reaching out to them. I'll just wait until this point. Well, guess what? Here's a couple things that you just said. Number one, the rapport here cannot be overstated. Number two, guess what? You will get a deal or two in the middle of that every once in a while. And so you're robbing yourself from building rapport, and you're robbing yourself from getting some deals while they're in the ostrich face, because there will be somebody like a loan mod, they'll say no. An agent's like, no. FSBO, they're getting bad feedback. You want to be there every freaking step of the way. You have only today to get a deal. What part of the process are you reaching out to?
If I want to get a deal today, I want to go where the biggest urgency is. Is there urgency in notice of default?
Yes.
Yeah, but not a crazy amount. This period of time, we're ostriching. This period of time, this is when people have to make a decision.
Michael D. Frankie. D is for door knocking pre-foreclosures. Michael, what is the difference between pre-foreclosures and foreclosure?
A pre-foreclosure is a house that's behind on payments, but it has not gotten to the auction yet. So in previous videos, we talked about the timeline until a foreclosure. It's a pre-foreclosure until it hits that foreclosure auction. After that foreclosure auction happens at the courthouse steps, then it turns into a foreclosure.
Okay, so let's say it's a month. Do you guys have a specific date in your auction?
We have auctions pretty much daily.
Okay, so do we, but in Texas you don't. I think it's like the second or third Tuesday of every month inside of Texas. So Texas, like you guys have a massive day of a lot of foreclosures happening the same day. So let's say it's a Monday and the foreclosure auction is set at 11:51 a.m. A seller has been ignoring you. You and your team have reached out on when the NOD list was posted. You guys call it a what? Appointment?
An appointment lead.
Okay, when you get the appointment lead, you have all this time frame. You've been reaching out to the seller. The seller's been ghosting you, but then they reach out to you Monday at 9 a.m. and saying, hey, Michael, I'm getting foreclosed on in 2 hours and 51 minutes. I've been ignoring all 116 attempts of yours and your team. I need help. I imagine it's too late. What is your answer?
There's obviously a lot of ninja things you can do, and it takes some skill to get these foreclosure sales stopped. But the reality is that if they wait until this long, more than likely, it's going to end up foreclosing, but I know you and I have stopped stuff right at the last second.
Okay, so you can stop it right at the last second. Couple of things I would do. Michael will make some dedicated videos on how to stop foreclosures on his channel. Also, my wife Laura has stopped live foreclosures inside of our community, inside of the Subto community. She calls. It takes a lot of work. It's tough. Sometimes with that little time frame, the challenging thing is getting a hold of the bank and the trustee to get approval. And so can it happen?
It absolutely can.
Okay. Now, I would say that there's a couple of things that you can do. Michael will talk about these in greater length on his other channel. Number one, you can pause or extend the foreclosure by calling the loss mitigation department. Okay? This can sometimes take 12 minutes or 12 hours, depending on how many people that are in the queue for you to talk to somebody who's a decision maker. And sometimes you have to talk to 2 or 3 different people. My wife was just talking to somebody the other day. She calls them. She goes, "Hey, Laura, I called the trustee and I called the bank and I couldn't get a hold of anybody in the loss mitigation department." And Laura's like, "You got to call like 15 times all the time." So if you're going this route, you probably have a 60% chance on the final day of stopping or extending the foreclosure. Another way to do it is, some people will tell me not to talk about this. Come at me, bro. A lot of times the sellers have an option. If they file bankruptcy the day of their auction or before that, it will extend it, stop it, push it back. What will it do?
So it stops the sale, and then depending on your state, it might be 30, 60, 120 days until that property would loop through the foreclosure process again.
I'm not telling you to go tell your seller to do this. I'm just telling you that when we are communicating with sellers, the sellers will say stuff like, "What are our options?" And we'll say, well, option 1 is I get somebody on the phone and desperately try and stop or pause the foreclosure. A lot of times I will run down to the trustee's office. I have personally ran down to the trustee's office. You guys probably see, Eric, you remember that seller? Oh my gosh. I wasn't even wearing any underwear when this happened. Okay, Aaron Green in the Subto community has a foreclosure lead here locally. He had been doing all of this, reaching out to the seller. The day or the night before, the seller reaches back out to Aaron Green and says, "Okay, please help me extend the foreclosure." Aaron Green sends me a text message. He goes, Pace, I know you don't get involved in these things, but I need somebody to take the seller down to the trustee. The trustee says if you bring the seller down and you bring the arrears right now and you catch up the arrears, they'll extend or stop the foreclosure. And I'm like, bro, I'm not even in my underwear right now. And I have no time to like change. I need to run. I had to drive 45 minutes, get the seller, drive him to the trustee. We got to figure it out with like 6 freaking minutes to spare. And we recorded this. You can also do this with bankruptcy. Am I telling the seller to go and file bankruptcy? No. But I have before. And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you I have done that and it does work. And I suggest you don't do it. Don't tell the seller to file bankruptcy. You are not an attorney. You don't want to do that. But I'm just letting you know I have done it. Okay? In private quarters, when nobody on YouTube's watching me, I might potentially maybe give you a different answer. Okay? So bankruptcy is another one. Anything else I can do you can think of?
Guys, at the end of the day, we've talked about in all of these videos why these sellers go with us, and it's our persistence throughout the process. And this is the time where we cannot give up. Pace talks about extending the foreclosures by calling loss mitigation. I don't know how many times I have called with an hour, 2 hours left, and you get someone on the phone that's incompetent. You know they are. It drives you crazy. Okay, do not waste any more time. I will politely end the conversation, hang up. You keep calling. Eventually, you're going to get that lady or man that's worked there for 30 years, right? And they'll say a whole different thing than what the person before said. Oh, wow, I actually care about people. I'll help them out. Let me escalate this to the top level. That's the person you're going to want to find. Pace said that Laura calls 10, 15 people. You do what it takes to get these people the...
What you're saying, Michael, is let's say that it's me, right? Here's you, Michael, D, Frankie, okay? Michael D, door knocking Frankie, makes a phone call to the 1-800 number that's on the whatever. I get a hold of the first person. You're telling me that just because this person says no or sounds like they have no clue what loss mitigation is or foreclosure, I shouldn't just give up?
Guys, they're going to say on the phone whatever their handbook for the lender says. They're going to say, well, it takes at least 5 business days to get a reinstatement. There's no way to stop the sale. You cannot take no for an answer. You're trying to save the seller's livelihood. Okay, so you politely hang up. You obviously don't want to tick off the people at the lender. Hang up. Call again. It's a call center. You're going to get all kinds of different people.
Yep. And you're going to call this 800 number. First person here is going to say no. Second person, what would you plan on? Them saying no too?
Yeah, they're going to say no as well.
Okay, third person,
you might start getting somewhere, but it's going to take potentially 5, 10, 15 calls.
Perfect. So you get a hold of somebody that finally has been there 30 years and they care. And then what they do is they go, yeah, I can help you. And they give you to the decision maker, the DM, baby, the decision maker. What are you doing typically in that situation? Michael will make a more in-depth video on that on his channel, but let's talk about this right now. Let's say I can't stop the foreclosure, right? Let's say that the seller, I have had this too, okay? I had a seller, this is back when we were running our door knocking team. I had Matthew, was my partner at the time, Matthew Beard. He was running our door knocking team, and we had a seller literally the day before right here in this go zone, okay? They're like, running the bases. They're rounding third base, heading to foreclosure plate. They're about to lose their home to foreclosure. And we said, well, you've got 2 options. We can help you pause and extend as long as we get under contract. We're not going to help you pause and extend if we're not under contract. Or you guys can go in and file bankruptcy. But I'm not giving you that advice. That's what we always would do. Guess what the seller did?
What did they do?
They let the house go. They just said, it's not worth our time. We don't want to go through more of this. We're just sick with the house. And we could not get them under contract. They just let the house go. And they honestly didn't believe that the house was going to go to foreclosure. My team was all butthurt about it. Matt was butthurt about it. He's like, oh, this sucks. I go, no, it doesn't. Here's why it doesn't suck, okay? What we did is we started using this house as a story with other pre-foreclosure sellers saying, hey, this is what happens when you think, okay? And we went to the house. Our state, you get like 5 to 10 days to get out of the house. The sheriff will come in and pull all your stuff out. So what we did is I had my team go and take photos of, and guys, this sounds brutal and savage, but sometimes this is what sellers need to see in these situations. So what we did is we took a before photo and an after photo of the house. The before photo was before the sheriff pulled all their stuff out of the house and yanked it out onto the yard, the constable. The next one was after, and there's a pile of stuff. And I go, this is before the foreclosure, the day I could have saved the seller. Here's 5 days after. This is what's going to happen if we do not make a decision, because this is real. Have you ever had anything like that? A seller just lets it go to foreclosure?
Absolutely. People are in disbelief. They think that what the lender's doing is illegal. They're going to sue them. They're going to do all these things, and it's never going to happen to them. Guys, as the trusted advisor, we've talked about that in other videos. At some point when it gets close, you kind of have to change your tone and be hard on them. You got to give some tough love and be like, look, we've been fighting with you this whole time on getting this foreclosure sale stopped. You wait till the last second. This is exactly what's going to happen. I love Pace's idea on having visual evidence of this is exactly what is going to happen. You can say, look, your options are, I can help you get it extended. You can go file bankruptcy on your own accord, or you can sign an agreement with me. I can get it stopped, and then you can have a peaceful process to find your next home or whatever the process may be, or you can have the risk of whoever buys that thing at the foreclosure sale and you're going to be kicked out of your home in a few weeks. What sounds better to you?
Right. Okay, so let's say that they actually get foreclosed on. Bank comes in, trustee comes in, an investor buys this house at 11:51 a.m. They become the new owner. What are the options for us at this point? Can we redeem this?
So depending on the state, yeah, they have redemption rights. Like for where I'm from, the Kansas side, like I told you in a previous video, wild, wild west. It's a year-long party of interesting in terms of redemption rights. Missouri side, no redemption rights, okay?
Arizona, same thing. We don't have any redemption rights unless your HOA foreclosed on you or you're foreclosed on from state taxes. If you're foreclosed on one of those things, but the trustee taking the house back for the bank, 0 redemption. There's nothing they can do about it.
Yes.
Okay, so what does that now become is this becomes, okay, so that's a sheriff sale. It's different. The redemption stuff is a sheriff sale. This is now what we call an REO. Well, not REO. What is an REO? This is very important for people to know. An REO, what's the acronym for this? Is real estate owned, which means the bank went to sell this on the auction. Nobody bought it for the reserve price, and the bank actually ends up taking the house back and putting it in their portfolio, which they do not want. They end up hiring a real estate agent to go list these properties and get them turned around and put them back on the market. So sometimes you'll hear about REO agents, or you'll hear agents that'll brag about like, oh yeah, I had an REO account for a really long time. It's like, wow, bro, that's really, really good. That's the bank taking all these houses back. They don't want the houses back, and then hiring these agents, an outside party, to clean up the houses, put them back on the market. Now, this is also what we would call a foreclosure. Okay, they are actually foreclosed on. They are done, no redemption, house cannot be owned. A lot of these sellers, you will run into them, they will believe, well, I'll just buy it on the auction, or I won't buy it on the auction. What I'll do is I'll buy it from the investor, or I'll keep renting it from the investor that buys the house. Have you ever had anybody say that to you?
People will come up with any excuse to not work with you. And this is why it's so important in those last few days to set the stage on every possible situation and just call their BS. It's like, look, you think you know what you're talking about, but you're sitting in front of the person that knows more about foreclosures than anyone in this market. Here is exactly what is going to happen if you don't act right now.
Okay, so is there a time where we cannot help the seller any longer? Yeah, the answer is right here. When the house gets foreclosed on, done, it's gone. Now, do you buy on auction?
I have tried to buy at auction, but there's so many hedge funds down there that I can't afford the prices that they pay.
Okay, so same thing in our market in Arizona. We have something really interesting. We have bidding services. Do you guys have those?
I'm not aware of those.
Okay, so this is how bad it is at the auction here, okay? What happened is back during the big auction days years and years ago, back in like 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, so many hedge funds were in Phoenix, Arizona, Invitation Homes, Blackstone, all these companies, Colony Homes. They were all down at the auction, just bidding against each other. They said, you know what we should do is we should create a coalition of bidding services and make it so nobody can bid at the auction without going through us. So we have 5 to 7 bidding services in the state of Arizona, privately owned, that basically, it's the mafia. They are the mafia. They make it so everybody pays $2,500 to even let you make a bid at a public auction. These are private people that block you from making a bid at the public auction. Pace, they can't block me. I can go to a public auction. Yeah, you think so? They are so good at manipulating you to the point where you're out there on the auction step. All 5 of them will manipulate you into a house you do not want. They will bid you up to the point where you think it's actually a good deal. You're like, oh my gosh, these guys are bidding like crazy on this house. I'm going to keep bidding. And then they all, once you get bid to a certain point, they all pull back and they're like, good luck with that freaking house. They've been doing that for years. So we have a bidding service like coalition or mafia, I should call it, here in Arizona. No regular human being is going down to the auction. It's not happening. So the best chance for you is get them before the auction date. Is there a point, let's say the seller calls you, Michael, at 11:50 a.m. They got a minute to spare. Anything I can do?
At 11:50, you're probably toast.
You're toast, okay? You are toast. So hopefully this helps you. I think what Michael's gonna do, I'm telling this to Austin right now, Michael's gonna make a video on his channel talking about the 5 options that he gives to the seller before all of this happens, so that he's building rapport and giving those 5 options. I've filmed 8 videos or 9 videos with Michael, and I haven't fed him today, guys. I've given him 1 Fresca. He needs some replenishment, so we're gonna let him go. And we'll see you guys in an extension of this series. I'll be in Kansas City for that extension, and I hope that Michael takes me door knocking in his hometown market. I don't want a door knocking in Kansas. I want a door knock in Missouri.
Okay, we can do it.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, go over to Michael D. Frankie's YouTube channel. D is for door knocking, and we'll see you guys in the next video.